Perhaps we need some outside universal threat to make us recognize this common bound. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
Welcome to Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate you wrapping up your week with us as we got a great show tonight. Attila Kaldi is back for the second time. He is going to be talking about Yowies and other monsters of Australia. Dirty Filth is here with another great cartoon, and we're glad to have each and every one of you here, including Ann B in the gold medal position, Race Fan with the silver, Laura Lobbs taking home the bronze medal tonight. Robert Lamoth, thank you for joining us. We very much appreciate it. Deer Slayer, Kevin, and who else do we have here? Road Flare, good to have you here. Area 51, Stephanie Kenny Blankenship, and Dirty Filth, good to see you. Ukrainian Anita, how are you, my dear? Hope you're feeling better. Les Paul Holland, give a strum for us for in Australia. We'd appreciate it. There's our favorite Marine, Black Dragon. Thank you so much for coming on in. We very much appreciate your listening ears. Thank you for your service as we continue on with roll call tonight. Mama Susan, nice to see you. And there's Dino Bravo fan and Tim Mothman and Tim Mothman's goatee. Two separate entities, that's for sure. Okay, continuing on with our roll call. Sabrina is back. Thank you for joining us. Hello, T-Bone. What's happening, my man? And who else do we have here? Scrolling on down. Digger Dog, good to have you back. And let's see. Luscious Jules, nice to see you. Jessica S. is here. Jessica will be signing autographs after the show. Line up to the left of the studio, if you don't mind, to the left of the studio. Millennium, my man, thank you for joining us. And we also have our good friend Vanessa and Raymond L. and just another guy named Harry. And where are we here on roll call? Richard Elmore, good to see you. And Double Don Philly is here. Double Don Philly will be signing autographs after the show as well. Line up to the right of the studio, if you don't mind, to the right of the studio. Continuing on, Grant and his lip blade. Nice to see you, buddy. And Deer Slayer and Pixie Lara, Christine Lynn, W. David Page, Dewey Cheatham and Howe. Good to have you all here. Continuing on, there's Super Crazy and Mike Rivers. Good to see you guys. And Downshift. It's been a while. Good to have you stopping by again, my man. And who else do we have? See How We Are Living. Good morning to you. Susan Alloway, how are you? And let's see, We Runa Farm. Thank you for joining us. Let's roll it on out here. Who else do we have? Doug Shelby is here. The Doug Shelby has arrived. So we can continue to start this show. Lee the Bee, Ms. Twinkle, thank you for coming on in. Thomas Rock, good to have you here early. Hello, Jade. Welcome to SOR Chat. And who else do we have here? Scrolling on down. Stu Gerson, nice to see you. And Video Game Zombie, thanks for coming on in. As we're going to start the radio side. Joe Ferreira, how are you, my man, down in Brazil? Good to see you. And let's get the radio side going here, so that way we could get Bill WD40 into the chat room to lube us up for tonight's show, because you always want to go into a show nice and smooth. Attila, I do have you. I do see you, so I know you can hear me. Let's see. Who else do we have? Y2K2MI, how are you? Yeah, we're going to bring that woo for you tonight, man. We're going to bring some serious woo tonight. All right. And let's see here. I think we're caught up. Super chat is open. It's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. Also, you could join our Space Travelers Club, and I'm going to put the link in the chat room right now. We're up to 21. Yeah, it doesn't sound like much, but I'll take it. I will take the love and support, and you want to join it too. Mike Rivers, thank you for kicking off the super chat tonight. Once again, it's a wonderful way to support what we do on this show on a nightly basis. So thank you very, very much. Also, you can do your shopping at spacedoutradio.com. And don't forget, May 10th to 12th, 2024. It's our third annual fan party. Yeah, we're going to fire this thing up. We're going to get going and get your horns up. It's that time. Let's rock. From the mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. You can join us at youtube.com/spaced out radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. You can follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag as well. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by visiting Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. A power show of information tonight as we head down under to Australia, where Attila Kaldi is going to join us talking about the Yowie and other amazing monsters from Australia. Then in hour number 3, Steve Stockton is here with another weird, spooky story, followed up by Little Timmy Senor and the UFO reports. All right. We're going to get to it. Sydney, Australia-based freelance filmmaker Attila Kaldi began his first project in the early 2000s with a short documentary film based on UFO encounters. Since then, he has been involved in over 20 different media projects, mostly covering the aspects of the unexplained. His most fun project that he enjoys, Tracking the Lore. It's all a part of Track, Search for Australia's Bigfoot. And I'm kind of pumped up about this one because I will be in the forest all day tomorrow and probably on Sunday looking for Sasquatch as well. Dirty Filth and Attila Kaldi, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio. Attila, you think you're a little bit frozen there. We're going to have to get you out, but hopefully you can come back in momentarily. And I'm excited about this. I'm excited about monsters, because there is something, if you haven't done it yet, there is something really, really special about going into the forest and literally spending your time wandering around, wondering what is watching you. It's a good time. It's a fun time. And I love having that opportunity. It's scary because there are so many things that could kill you in the forest and down under. Attila Kaldi, it's been a long time since we had you on Spaced Out Radio, my friend. How are you? All right. He is freezing on up here. So, Filth, maybe contact him and just say, oh, hold on. I think his signal is coming back. No, it's not. All right. We're having troubles because you know what? Hey, there's a lot of ocean between British Columbia and Australia. And sometimes the signal just doesn't seem to pop on through. But, like I was saying, in regards to going out in the forest, where we can really, really hammer home some serious, serious information. You gotta be careful because it's not just Sasquatch out there. It's just not Dogman or anything like that. You have to watch for the elements, especially at this time of year where bears are most active because they're looking for food. All right. And they are listening for the hunters. And when they hear those gunshots, they don't go running the other way unless they're close. No, they usually run towards it because they have learned over years that those gunshots mean that there could be free food there. And if you know anything about bears, they're actually quite lazy animals. They don't like to have a challenge and chase down deer or rabbits or anything like that. They will. They have the speed to do it, but if they could steal something, that's much better for them. It doesn't take as much effort. Kind of honestly, it kind of sounds like me near the fridge. Yep. If somebody else is making dinner, it's much easier than if I have to make dinner. You know how it goes. I'm sure you've experienced that as well. So, I mean, the idea behind it is, myself, little Marky Spender, my best friend, we are going into the forest. We are going to be looking around to see what we can find, see if we can find any new trails, any sort of what do they call them? The structures that are in the forest. It's just one of those things where that's what we're going to be looking for. And those encounters, they happen by chance, man. They happen by chance and they get into a lot of different meanings. I don't know what they mean. I'm not a professional. I'm not even a researcher. I just like to go out and look. So we're going to try this again with Attila Kaldi. Attila, can you hear us now?
Yes, Dave. How you going?
Hey, it's good to talk to you again,
the
my
connection
friend.
is pretty bad. Likewise, Dave. Thank you again for having me.
Are you using Google Chrome or Firefox?
I'm using Chrome.
Okay, so it shouldn't be too bad then. All right. So
Yeah,
Attila,
yeah.
this is your second time on Spaced Out Radio, and we're glad to have you here
Mhm.
again, my friend. What have you been up to since the last time we talked?
Well, crikey, yeah, quite a fair bit actually. And I believe that we talked back. I think it was November, wasn't it? About October, November last year.
Almost a year ago, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, they've since then I've released the last documentary film that I did on the Australian Bigfoot, which is called Tracking the Law, and that's been released through my distributor Gravitas Ventures, which over in America, over in the States, and so that now could be viewed through a lot of different platforms, even Tubi TV, which I believe is free. But yeah, that was released back in December, and I've had some really good feedback on that.
Excellent.
But apart
So
from
you
yeah,
for
sorry, Dave, you
you,
dropped out there for a moment.
that's okay. That's okay. So you've been keeping busy, which is good, and searching for new projects. I mean, for a lot of people out there, especially us in North America, who've had Bigfoot encounters or Bigfoot experiences, we know what it's like. Is there a real difference between what we know as the North American Sasquatch comparatively to what the Yowie is?
Dave, that's a very interesting question, and there are a lot of similarities. I guess with the way people have seen what the Australian Bigfoot or the Yowie actually looks like, there are some very similar descriptions over in America that kind of parallel that. But look, there are some researchers in Australia that do believe that the Australian Yowie is in fact a marsupial ape. So if that is true, then ultimately that is the point of separation there, because the vocalization and the characteristics, they do seem to be very, very similar between what we can hear that's coming from stateside compared to what people are experiencing here in Australia.
Describe the creature to us. What does it look like? How tall does it stand? What do its feet look like?
Well, look, we do have two potentially 3 different types of Bigfoot that has been witnessed and seen in Australia, but also part of the Australian Indigenous law. And going from the smallest one is what they refer to.
Okay, Attila, I don't know if you can hear us or not, but our signal seems to have cut out there momentarily. So hopefully we can catch up with you. I mean, these creatures, the one thing that I could say is that these creatures, in the little that I know about them, they seem to have the similar heights between 7 and 10 feet, footprints between 16 and 19, 20 inches long, if not bigger for the bigger guys.
A few years ago.
Yeah. Attila, you cut out on us for about 15 seconds there.
Yes, sorry. So going back to the different types. So we have a smaller version here in Australia known as the Junjadi, or Wadagadal in the eastern coast of New South Wales. And they're a very sort of nimble, smaller, 3-foot tall type creature, very intelligent. And they have been witnessed by quite a number of people, including First Nation people here in Australia. So there has been this connection between them, and they also believed to bring a lot of knowledge to the Australian Indigenous culture. And then we have the classical Yowies, which tend to grow up to about anywhere between 10 to 12 foot tall, similar to what Sasquatch or Bigfoot in North America tends to be described. But they have very similar characteristics. So you have very long fur. Some of them appear to be matted. Some of them appear to be well kept. The one that my wife saw here in Australia had a reddish brownish fur to it. Their appearances appear to be between, I guess, an ape, like a gorilla, mixed with a human being. So the conical head shape. So we have all those classical features that you would describe as what Sasquatch looks. So we have those. We have ones with darker fur. We have ones that seem to have greyish fur, or appear to be more aged, or perhaps even an elder that's part of a tribal community. And then we have what is known, which is quite a controversial species, known as the quincan. And these quincan are the true giants of the forest, and they have been reported in South Australia and in Queensland, and they are part of certain law, Indigenous law. But they do grow up to around 15 foot tall, if not even larger. So they are considered to be the true giants of the forest. And some of the descriptions tend to suggest that these quincans are more of an aggressive species than what the Yowies are. But then again, those people who tend to bump into these creatures don't live to tell the tale, right? So if they are aggressive, that is. But ultimately, I mean, the aggression, a lot of people do tend to point the finger and say that these are monsters, especially the Yowies, that they're very aggressive. I think they're just like any other, ape-like species. If you catch them on a bad day, they're going to make you aware of that. If you're in an area where there are, young'uns, especially if there's a female there, then ultimately they're going to defend their young, they're going to defend their territories. And considering the fact that, we are encroaching onto their hunting grounds, I'm not surprised that they are expressing their discomfort and their displeasure towards humanity. So I personally don't believe that they're actively going out and hunting people. But then again, like I said before, those people who do encounter cryptids out there that are, dead set on taking out humans, those people aren't around to tell the story.
These stories around North America have been told for centuries among First Nations and people who have had amazing encounters with the creatures. How often are these creatures being sighted down there?
Look, all you need to do, I guess, is go to the Australian Yowie research site and look at their reports. I think they are witnessed more frequently than we tend to think, because you work out the ratio of people who are reporting these sightings, opposed to, and this is purely theoretical, opposed to those people who have these experiences but refuse to report these sightings due to the fear of ridicule and so forth. So I think, especially with the fires, I think the fires that happened here in 2019 and 2020 changed a lot of the landscape here. And I do believe that these creatures may have perhaps migrated into areas that were reasonably unaffected, and there are not a lot of those, unfortunately. So, but yeah, I think after COVID, a lot of these creatures may have gained, I guess, confidence in coming closer towards, urban areas. And there have been a fair few reports out there. And, I know some researchers, one particular fellow who's known as Yowie Dan, who appears in both of my documentaries. He's actively out there constantly in the Blue Mountains here in New South Wales on the eastern seaboard of Australia. And he's out there regularly looking for signs to see if they are coming back. So, yeah, there are reports, but, I do believe that there is a steady variation over the years. Some years do tend to produce more reports than others. We are now heading into a drier season here in Australia, so we're experiencing an early summer. So right now it's early spring, but we are hitting now in excess of 30 degrees Celsius here in Sydney. So the summers now and the weather now is, or the climate now is tending to be more drier than before. So I do believe that they're going to be more active looking for resources such as water and so forth. So now I think is a good time to go out there and look for these creatures, because I do believe that they will be looking for water sources and so forth. So they will tend to go closer to where there are campsites, closer to where there are urban areas, for them to obviously survive the harsh conditions.
Do you find that with this creature down there that it is very elusive, that it is something that, maybe doesn't want to be seen, doesn't like to be seen? Up here, as you know, and you've studied, around here, there's a big debate on whether or not this creature is a flesh and blood creature, or whether it has some sort of supernatural abilities to cloak itself, or to just vanish into a portal or something along those lines. What's the hot take on it down there?
Look, I mean, I think in Australia we tend to lean more towards the flesh and blood element of the Yowies. And talking and connecting with Indigenous people here, I've learned a great deal, especially with making this documentary film. And you don't get a lot of that. You don't get a lot of stories coming from the Australian Indigenous culture about the Yowies, because they don't like talking about it. And the reason why is because of the ridicule over the years that Westerners have responded, or the way they've responded towards Indigenous stories. So we tend to believe that they are flesh and blood. In the documentary, one of the elders actually clearly makes a quote on this. And funny enough, the Yowie that my wife saw was one of those experiences where this thing was squatting, and she was actually doing a ghost hunt at the time. And she was outside this facility, and this creature was actually squatting next to a bush, which was about almost, I'd say about just under 2 meters tall. And it was almost as high as the bush whilst it was squatting down. And then when she did a double take, this creature was gone. But she saw it. She saw the fur. She saw how the sunlight was penetrating through the fur. She saw the outline. It was a clear visual. So, and a lot of people have had these experiences, but I do believe, and again, going back to what this elder actually said, that the guardians of the land, and this is what they refer them to as the guardians of the land, they will remain as guardians in flesh and blood and in spirit. So interpreting that, basically what he's saying is that even though they're flesh and blood now, they are, or a lot of the experiences are flesh and blood. The ones that tend to be more of a spiritual experience are those that have departed or have died, but they do continue with their duties of looking after the land, even in the afterlife, as ghosts. So just as people have experiences seeing, relatives that have long departed the physical realm, or even people of a bygone era, why not these Yowies as well? Why can't they come back as spiritual beings after they have departed and continue on with what they sworn to do whilst in the physical realm? So I do believe that the ones that we do see that vanish or appear and then disappear like phantoms, I do believe that they are that. I do believe that they are spirits or ghosts of a once flesh and blood being. And so do these elders that I spoke to. So I do believe that there is a combination of those two. When we start talking about portals and things like that, look, we simply don't have enough information here about that. I know that there have been some encounters and people have reported some sightings that had to do with what appeared to be portals, but I believe at this point in time that we do have these two elements. We have the spiritual element and we have the physical element.
Yeah, it's a debate that's going to continue until more information really comes out about this. But I mean, this is a creature that is being seen all around the world. It's in China, it's in Russia, it's in the Ural Mountains, it's in the Himalayas by some of the world's tallest peaks. It's in Africa, it's in North America, South America has been seen, Australia. It's on every continent that is out there. I mean, do you think we're dealing with just a natural species that is maybe a human wild man that changed its ways thousands of years ago as man was evolving?
I do believe that. Look, I do believe just as humans have adapted to different climates, so the migration out of Africa that occurred, look, I believe about a million years ago or so, for thereabout, or 100,000 years ago. I mean, I'm not a paleoanthropologist, so I can't sort of give you those dates, but the migration out of Africa, so we all came from that same region, but we're all very different depending on where our ancestors come from. So if you're from the Southeast Asian area, you're going to look different to those people who are, let's say, who are in Africa or in other parts of Asia or in Europe. So I do believe that some of these creatures have basically adapted to their environments. Like my heritage, my background is Hungarian. It's from Central Europe, and even there in Hungary, in Central Europe, they've actually had sightings of lemur-like creatures. And when I say lemur, they actually appear to look like a lemur, but around 2 meters tall and squatting in a tree with white fur. And that the creature that was sighted, and this is going back about 20 or 30 years ago, in a forest in northern Hungary, this creature basically saw these people who were taking a night stroll and leaped from branch to branch and then jumped on the ground and sprinted away. So we have I think your description of a wild man or wild people or forest folk, I think would be, yeah, definitely more of an accurate description.
We have about 25 seconds here to go. And when we come back from the break, I really want to know about the aggression of these creatures in your area, because up where I am, they seem to be a lot docile. You go down into the United States near the Texas-Louisiana border, they seem to be a lot more aggressive in that southern panhandle. You go up towards Alaska and the northern reaches of Canada, this creature seems to be growing into that 12 to 20 foot range. So we've heard rumors. There's a lot we need to discuss with our good friend Attila Kaldi, film director, movie maker out of Sydney, Australia, talking about the Yowie tonight We will be back with more Spaced Out Radio when we return right after this. Stay tuned, everybody. We're in for a great show tonight. All right, we are clear, Attila.
How you going, mate? It's been a little while.
It has, man. Good to have you back here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm happy to be back, mate. Thanks for having me again. How's things up on your end of the world?
Well, I'm getting excited. Like when you were kind of breaking up at the beginning of the show there, I was telling everybody I'm heading into the forest this weekend to go look for them. You know, because it's hunting season up here right now.
Yeah.
And with the amount of movement in the forest, we're coming up on we're 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away from the 1-year anniversary of us seeing one up here last year. So it's it's getting to that point where it's kind of interesting to see if we're going to be able to get into our area, which we should. But number two, what else is out there? What else can we find? Right. So I'm excited, and we're going to start it up tomorrow.
Oh, that sounds fantastic, mate. I hope you guys actually get something while you're out there.
I'm hoping. I got my my trained eyes and my 10-year-old son who he actually saw the creature with us last year.
Wow.
So yeah, that was pretty exciting for him. He kind of blows it off nonchalantly. Like my boy is so much not like me because he's very he doesn't get too high and he doesn't get too low. He's kind of like really I don't want to call him mellow, but like when I ask him, "Hey buddy, tell everybody, tell Dad's friend here about the Sasquatch we saw." "Yeah, we saw it."
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, really? Can you describe it? Maybe go into some detail? Nope. He's just, yeah, I saw it. It was cool. And that's it. Like, I'm like, God, you don't know how hard it is to say you've seen one.
Yeah. Oh, well, no, well, that's just the way he perceives it, I guess. We all have our own way of perceiving these things when we have an experience,
Very true.
So good on him. So, Dave, question for you. How's my audio?
Your audio is perfect.
Oh, good. Excellent. All right. Fantastic. Yeah.
Your audio.
I'm sorry I had to close the cam off. Klaus rang me up and said, look, if I can do that, if I need to do that, it's okay. And it looks like it's actually reduced the amount of data that I'm chewing up. So,
yeah, not a problem, my man. Not a problem. It sucks we can't have you on camera because you're a handsome devil. But all right.
Good on you.
That's all right. We got you. That's the main thing is you're here. So
no, thanks, mate. Yeah. I saw you on a TV series with these ladies doing a run in America. Yeah. Now, my wife and I were watching. I said, "Hey, this is Dave." It was great. It's quite a good little series.
Yeah, right where they filmed that's about 3 miles from my house where the studio is right now. And
wow.
I actually do a ghost tour to raise money for that museum every 2 weeks. And
good on you.
I think we started in July this year, and I think we've raised $4,000 for the museum this year.
Good money.
So far.
Good on you. Yeah.
Yeah. And we donate 100%. We don't keep any profit. And it's we've been getting good crowds. Like our smallest crowd has been 35 people. We've also been doing private tours. So if people want private tours, it costs them, like our tour is about $25 a person. We do it
pretty
for
good.
Yeah, people are shocked at how long it is. Like we really take our time with people and try and get them an experience. And our tour is 2.5 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
And we're only going in 5 of the 10 buildings, 5 of the 8 buildings, 9 buildings that are on their property. But that barn that you saw with that photograph, remember the photograph right at the beginning?
Yeah.
Okay. That dude has attacked me.
Really?
Yeah. He's attacked me. He's attacked my buddy. So when they went on the catwalk to go look for him, I
Mm,
had to, before the show, I had to go talk to him to make sure that he would be okay with it,
mm.
because otherwise he doesn't like people on his catwalk and he will attack. And it's not fun because that bastard knows his own strength on the
Yeah,
other
I'll
side.
say. Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, you do bump into things like that every now and then.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Bear with me. We've got about 15 seconds left. Hey, everybody, and welcome, Toothbrush. How you doing? Don't forget the super chat is open. Thank you to Mike for kicking things off tonight, and the Space Travelers Club still looking for new members. Here's the link. Second half hour of Spaced Out Radio is now underway. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Always appreciate bringing the woo to you. Reminder to all of you that if you miss portions of this show or others, our archives are always free. We'll never charge for them. YouTube.com/Spaced Out Radio. The only thing I ask for, hit that subscribe button, ring that bell. And you can listen to us on any major podcast network: Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and every major podcast network in between. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. Here we go. Attila Kaldi is here. He's a filmmaker out of Sydney, Australia, chasing down the ever-famous Yowie. And Attila, thank you so much for being with us tonight. Very much appreciate any chance we get to talk with you here, man.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Much appreciated.
I want to talk about the aggressiveness of this creature, because up here in North America, where I live, it's known more as a docile creature. It doesn't want really anything to do with humans, but very curious. It'll come up, sneak up on you, and maybe just watch what you're doing if you're having a fire, and or you got kids playing around. Like when I go out in the forest, I try and bring my son all the time, because you know how kids play and they're laughing on their own and they're hooting and howling, and that seems to draw them in here. Down south, when you get into some of those areas that are a little bit more violent, like the bayous of Louisiana or the swamps of Florida, you get into a more aggressive, smaller creature who seems to really, really try and challenge people who are witnessing it. Yet if you go up to northern reaches of Canada and up towards Alaska, the creature seems to get a lot larger and a lot more hard to see, but a lot more angry as well for its territory. What's the creature like down there?
Well, there is a variation of different reports. So we ultimately, it's very similar again, where these Yowies tend to avoid human contact at all costs. So as soon as, there've been quite a few sightings where people have actually seen basically just the back of them as they walk away in the forest. It's like they just don't want to have anything to do with humans. And I can understand why. And it's, if we go back and look at what colonialization did here to the native folk, I think that there is an element of storytelling there. And this is just my theory, but I do believe that these stories are echoed through, not just through the Indigenous community, but through these forest folk as well. So, and I do believe that history has left this stain, and it's a permanent stain. And I do believe that that may well be one of many reasons why these creatures, these forest folk, tend to avoid humans. But I have experienced their aggression back in 2013 when I was hiking into the Blue Mountains, down into the valley, not far from Katoomba, where the Three Sisters are. And I think a lot of people know or have heard of the Three Sisters because it's one of the iconic geographical, places, or should I say monuments built by nature in Australia. But when we did go down into the valley, and this was back in April 2013. We were in an area where ultimately you don't get people down there at night time. So as soon as darkness start to fall, all the hikers basically venture out, climb out of the valley and get into their cars and go home. Only people who actually camp in designated campsites, and these designated campsites, if you could imagine, you're basically walking parallel to this massive cliff. It's essentially like a rainforest. So you got these tall ferns, big canopies of gum trees and fern trees alike, and it does get pretty dark in certain spots there, even during the day. So you're basically walking around the edge of this big cliff, and as you're heading towards the valley, the forest tends to get denser. There's more water down there, so you don't get many people that actually venture off the trail. So there are a couple of spots off the trail, but in this particular night, we were alone. So there was 3 of us there, actually 4 counting myself. And as the wind picked up, we could actually hear movement between the trees. And these movements were on a high ground. And it also appeared to be coming in from both ends. So we had this movement, which seemed to be quite a heavy movement, coming from the high ground. And above us, there were a couple of fallen out trees, but there was also a platform out there where, anyone or anything could roam, but you could feel the heaviness of this thing moving, because there's a lot of compacted debris like leaves and bark and so forth. So when something heavy is moving, you could basically feel it vibrate throughout the ground, and this thing did that. And as the wind picked up, the movements became more intense, and then we started hearing movements from both sides, not just from the high ground, but both to the left and right hand sides of us. And then these trees or these sticks were launching above our heads like missiles, and then this big rock, probably the size of a softball, probably even larger, just landed right next to me. And that's when we decided we got to get up and leave, because someone's going to get killed, because that rock, if that would have hit any one of us in the right place, it would have been all over. So as we're walking out, we could feel and hear this thing almost like a gorilla, like a silverback, displaying its aggressive sort of stance and pounding the ground and throwing debris up in the air. You could almost see it through the sound. That's what it felt like. Every single movement this thing did, and it was heavy. It was a big fellow that displayed its aggression. It was thumping the ground really hard and throwing debris up in the air. And that was it. And we thought, yeah, okay, we're not welcome here anymore. Even after that rock was thrown and these sticks being thrown through the air, that was kind of the icing on the cake. And my daughter was with me there at the time, so we basically packed and left. And as we're walking out, we could hear, even on the lower ground, these guys were paralleling us. So the big fellow up the top end, he was walking and he was making himself known. So he wasn't being discreet by any means. He was smashing through the trees and the branches and everything else on the top end. And on the lower end, we could hear movement as well. So they were making sure that we were being escorted out and not coming back. And as we started making our way up the side of the cliff, that was it. The escort stopped right there, and they knew that we were leaving that area. So on my end, that was a classic display of an aggressive stance of aggression. But I don't think that these guys wanted to kill us, but they were giving us enough warning signs to making us aware that, look, if you push any further, things can get very, very real for you.
I'm nodding my head here, because in 2018, almost the same thing happened to us up here. And believe you me, and I'm sure you'll smile when I say this for our audience, there is no more eerie feeling than knowing you cannot see these creatures, but you can hear them, and they are around you, and they are pushing you to the direction they want you to go. It's not about where you want to go. It's about where they want you to go to get you out of their territory. It's creepy, man. It's
I am
absolutely
nodding intensely. Absolutely. 110%, mate. I think you've nailed it on the head. And this is where the correlation or the comparison comes in between the Yowies and the North American and Canadian versions
oh
of
yeah.
Bigfoot, and the Sasquatch. So look, it's incredible because there are so many similarities between the two, and it's almost like that they come from the same genus. They basically come from the same evolutionary tree or branch, if we want to call it that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. When you had your encounter with being escorted out, if we could say that politely, did you hear them vocally at all?
No, but funny you should mention that, because we did take trips back to that same location over and over again. And there were times when you could hear them pacing us. So again, there was one on the high side and one on the low side. And they were walking in parallel with us. And as we stopped before we started to ascend upwards to get out of the valley, we could hear whistling, we could hear clicking, like with the tongue. And yeah, this is coming from a dense bushland. I mean, no human without night vision could actually go into these forests. And we're talking about very dangerous terrain here. One wrong move, and yeah, you basically stumble down, and you can kill yourself doing that. There are some parts that are very, very steep and very loose surfaces. So whoever was paralleling us, they knew that terrain like the back of their hand. So without doubt, I do believe that what we were experiencing then back in 2013 was similar to my very first encounter back in 2007, when we were being escorted out again from a completely different side of the Blue Mountains. Again, very aggressive, the whole thing. They wanted to make sure that we were herded out. And that was more herding back in 2007, because I don't know if I told you that story, but we were on a UFO expedition, and we found this beautiful vantage point overlooking what's known as the Burragrang Valley. And this Burragrang Valley is if you see it, it takes your breath away. You're on this high spot, and you have this massive open valley surrounded by this endless mountain range of jagged rocks and brutal cliff faces. But down in the valley, you have this dense forest, and you have this river snaking into this lake called Lake Burragrang. And it's just beautiful. When you have the right spot, you have clear blue skies. It's westerly facing as you're looking towards this area. But we had a massive rock thrown at us again one night while we were actually sky watching, and landed right next to this lady. And the following day, we were debating whether or not we should stay there or not. There was more to the story, but coming to the crux of what happened, as we left at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it was between 5 and 5:30 of September, and that's early spring here. So the sun kind of sets around 5:30, 6 o'clock, and it gets dark around 6. As we're walking out, we're surrounded by, again, these ferns. And that's when we started hearing, again, being paralleled. And these guys were basically hitting the trees. And it was like bulldozers. I've never in my life felt such force in a forest. And these things were moving like machines and hitting the trees with these big sticks. And these sticks were, when they hit it, they were echoing, and we were going so fast. One of the guys actually had an anxiety attack. In fact, we first thought that he was having a heart attack because of the stress. And that was probably the only time in my life when I first thought, this is it. I'm not going to make it out alive out of here, because what's going on here? There's no chance in hell we're going to survive this. But regardless, we carried on and we got out. But that was another display of aggression and being herded or escorted out. But I think it was more herding, because they were hitting the trees from both sides, making sure that we're move along, get out. We don't want you here.
and once again, I'm nodding in agreement, because in 2018, what started our encounter was we heard that gibberish type, what they call samurai chatter, in
Yeah.
the forest,
Yeah.
and we were on a paranormal investigation when this happened, and because the area where we were was one of it, well, it's considered Canada's largest unsolved mass murder, and it's still an open case today. And in 1965, an airplane flying over our area had a bomb on it that blew up the plane, and all 52 passengers and crew were killed in like 30 miles from my house. And so when we went in there to do the paranormal investigation in 2018, we didn't expect Sasquatch. And we went in armed, and my buddy Mark, who I'll be going out with tomorrow, he never believed in the creature until he had something bipedal coming at him through the trees, while the other one had snuck up behind my buddy Merle by about 15, 20 feet, if
Wow.
that. And I'm caught in the middle. And where's the exit? It's in between us on the way out. And believe it or not, we actually went back this past summer to that area to with a camera crew to film a potential television pilot. And we were there at night. And God is my witness. I got to be very careful with what I say here. But God is my witness. I will never go back there at night again. Again. I was absolutely petrified. We had everything that you could imagine happening to us on those 2 nights of shooting out there. And yeah, our friend showed up. One of his friends was way like a couple miles away, and the big long roar that you
Mm,
hear that we had the big long roar happen. It was absolutely creepy. Creepy.
that's
And
incredible.
yeah. So I am
So why do you think that happened, or why do you think they did that?
I have a theory, and I don't know if it works down there, okay? But I have a theory after hosting so many of these shows and talking to so many researchers that these creatures seem to pop up around areas of tragedy a lot.
Mm,
Okay. And considering that we are at a place where 52 people died, I strongly believe that they are protectors of that land. Now, I know that sounds a little bit more woo than maybe that you're used to, but I strongly believe that there is a real tie between a lot of these creatures and places of death. There's a lot of Sasquatch and Dogman sightings, around cemeteries. Why is
mm,
that? Why are we in the middle of a forest where there is literally one enclosed road access? And when I say enclosed, like, you're not going to get a big truck in there. Okay. You need an ATV, or you need a smaller Jeep type vehicle in order to get in there. You're not just going to, um, you know, have a giant SUV or pickup truck get into these areas.
mm.
And I think these creatures are, in my opinion, are have at least some sort of spiritual sense to take care of these hallowed lands. Now, is it true or not? I don't know. It's just a theory, but it makes me wonder.
It's a very interesting point, Dave. It really is, because some of these places that there have been encounters here in Australia, I believe, are tied to incidences of going back to colonization. So, I mean, I think you could be onto something.
Yeah. Now, I like I said, I don't know, but you know what? Everything starts with a theory. I could be wrong, or it could be right. There's no in between,
Well, that's
but
right.
it's something for you, like, even down there when you talk to your friends and fellow researchers, just ask them that question. How many sightings around places of tragedy do we
Hmm.
have?
And that's something I will be definitely asking, because it would be interesting to see what ratio actually does connect these sightings to places of, of tragedy, as you say.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, the creatures that were chasing you out, did they ever give you a look at them? Because ours didn't.
No, no. There are two times that I've actually seen personally these creatures, and one again was in the early 2000s. We were doing another night watch up in one of the mountains, and as I was walking back to the vehicle at night time, I had a very cheap little Gen 1 monocular with me, so I was using that as a guide to walk my way towards the car, because I didn't want to lose my night sight. So once I turned the torch on, that's it. You lose your night sight if you want to turn back off again and you're sort of stumbling around half blind. So I was using the monocular with one eye, and as I was walking through the track, there was this big shadow that was standing at the end of this trail. Now, this trail was fairly straight, and it would have been probably about 20 meters from where I stood. And this thing basically towered over the trees there, the tea trees, and the trees were quite high. I mean, I'm about 6'3", 6'4", so they were probably about maybe a couple of sort of maybe an arm's length. Sorry, not an arm's length, but probably about another foot or so taller than me. But this thing basically towered over that and was just standing there. It was just an outline, a dark outline. And I backed off and I ran back to camp, and I told the guys, I said, look, there's something massive standing. And this is before my interest in Yowies and so forth. I was very sort of focused on the whole UFO scene at the time. And and the guys got up, and then we all walked, obviously torches on, and looking around and seeing what we were trying to identify what we saw. And one guy, so it's probably the local homeless guy, and I thought, well, geez, we're about 20 kilometers away from the nearest house in the wilderness here. I don't think that there would be a homeless guy, especially that big, standing there. And even if it was a homeless guy, he would have suffered from gigantism and probably had a high protein diet because of the way he looked. So we were looking around and we couldn't find him. And that was the first time that I saw it. And the second time, during the day in that same valley, my daughter was still young, and we were going on a hike. And again, there was this dark shadow that was sort of walking between the trees. And we noticed it, and my daughter stopped and she was saying, "Hey, Dad, look at that. There's this dark shadow human thing walking between the trees." So those were the only two times that I actually physically saw them. But it wasn't clear enough for me to see, or give a proper or clear description of the characteristics of these creatures. It was mainly just an outline.
Well, the outlines can be just as scary. Did they have any smell? Did they have any
No,
odor going on? See, I've never. Everybody always talks about this smell. I've never had the smell when they've been around.
there was a time when, again, we were on a night watch and sky watch up in the mountains, and we did smell it. It smelled like wet wool. That was the only way I can describe it. And again, we were out in the middle of nowhere, so there weren't any sheep or anything like that around. There weren't any farms or anything. It's a national parks area with dense woodland, and we're basically sitting on this outcrop on this cliff overlooking a valley there with a really good vantage point. And I do remember this would have been around 2003, 2004. And we smelt this very strong odor, and they did smell like wet wool. But that was the only time I actually smelt something like that.
Well, let's hope it doesn't smell in hour number 2 here of Spaced Out Radio when we return. Our great guest, Attila Kaldi, is here tonight, all the way from Sydney, Australia, talking about the Yowie and other monsters that are among the Aussies. Yeah, we will get into more because everything in Australia wants to kill you. whether it's on land or in water or in the rivers or in the ocean. Everything wants to kill you down there. We will continue on Spaced Out Radio right after this. So let's continue to have some fun with Attila Kaldi and Yowie stories right here on the Mighty SOR. Stay tuned. Hour 2 is next. All right, man, we are clear.
Awesome. Hey, just out of interest, have you interviewed John Kershaw by any chance from Creepers Cryptid?
No.
He had a dogman encounter here in Australia. Actually took a photo of it, which appears in Tracking the Law at the end. So if you want someone from Down Under on your show talking about dogman encounter, this guy's actually got an image, and he's happy to share it, of a dogman. And it did appear in the documentary. So I actually went to the site and did some site measurements and everything else, and it's quite interesting.
That'd be great. Yeah, get his information to Dirty Filth.
And, yeah, I will.
Let's track him down. Guys, I'm going to be right back. Dirty Filth, we're turning it over to you and your beautiful art. So don't forget to turn your microphone on.
I didn't forget to turn my microphone on this time. Hi, Attila. How's it going?
Good, mate. How are you?
Oh, not bad.
That's good. That's good. Hey, look, again, thank you so much for that painting of yours, that drawing. It was fantastic.
No worries. I'll get another one. I'll send to you here too.
Lovely. Every time someone comes to my office, that's the first spot they actually go to, and I say that's a flipping awesome picture.
Well, this time I'm drawing a Yowie inside a UFO. The two gray aliens are talking, and the one guy's saying, "You left the keys in the ignition again." And the other guys are saying, nice. "Oh, my bad."
Nice.
But luckily, they probably don't know how to fly a UFO, so we should be good on that end.
Yeah, they could fumble around a little bit and maybe nosedive it into something.
You know what was interesting you said earlier was the phantom spirit aspect of them. That was because I kind of thought, if humans can have a ghost, and why shouldn't something else that's intelligent enough and flesh and blood? And that was pretty interesting. I had to scribble a little bit of notes down there.
Yeah, it's funny enough, and that was underlined by, like I said, the Indigenous elders actually talk about the guardians or the police of the forest, and they say that whether or not they're in the afterlife or in the flesh and blood, they still show their respect. And these are the Indigenous people, because they're afraid of them. There's a story that goes on that many thousands of years ago, the Indigenous people and the Yowies actually made a pact, a contract, that the Yowies would be the guardians of the land and the Indigenous folk would manage the land. And that was broken when colonization happened here. And some elders who actually know that story are afraid to go into the wilderness because of what the Yowies might do.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting stories there.
I got a friend that's Indigenous here in Canada, and he's always got a lot of stories, and they're from his elders, and they passed them down orally through generations. And he came on the show one day and he just starts talking about them. Oh, Willie, Nimby, Namby, Pamby. And Dave's like, whoa, hold on a second. Like the buffalo headed people? He's like, oh yeah. And they fight and it was just how matter of fact he was about it, and how that they had similar things where people were assigned or made pacts or whatever to watch over areas. There's a lot people that can learn from the Indigenous that have been there. They've experienced all these things for generations, thousands of years, and then you just show up in a place and expect you're confused about how things work. Anyways, I'm
absolutely
rambling.
No, you're 100% right, because they have an intimate knowledge of the land and the the creatures that live there, and I actually spoke to because one of these elders became a good friend of mine. So we every now and then we go down south and we sort of go to their property. And I was just talking to him, and because this whole dogman thing, I mean, for me, the dogman creature fits in well with Europe and the Americas because of the wolves, and maybe they are a descendant of the dire wolves in some shape or form. I don't know, but in Australia, it doesn't really make sense. I mean, we do have dingoes here, but they're not. We never had massive dingoes. But the only large marsupial creature that could resemble a dogman was the marsupial lion. And that was something I brought up with this elder. And I said, is it possible that these marsupial lions may still be around and may have adapted to the land so well that they're able to walk on two legs? And his response was, he says, we know that they're around, but he says anything's possible. Adaptation to a new environment can potentially be possible. And apparently they went extinct about 40 to 50,000 years ago.
Right. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, they were known as Steinocaleo carnifex, so the largest marsupial predator ever to live.
We have about 30 seconds here, so I'm just going to take on over here, and thank you, Dirty Filth and Attila. Thank you to Mike and Cat Chaser for the great super chats. It's a wonderful way to support what we do. The super chat is open, and you can also join our Space Travelers Club on Patreon as we speak. Come join us. It's a lot of fun over there. And you can do your shopping at spacedoutradio.com. Here we go, everybody, with the next hour.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Here we go. Hour number 2 is now underway of Spaced Out Radio. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us, will you, at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Jarvie. Jarvie is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. We continue talking down under with our good friend Attila Kaldi, who's a filmmaker and documentarian out of Sydney, Australia, who's chasing down the monsters on his continent. We've been talking about the Yowie and other creatures, and we're going to continue on right now. Attila, welcome back to Spaced Out Radio.
Thank you, Dave.
Before we go into the Yowie a little bit more, I want to ask you just about this, because this creature totally, I believe, is still out there, and that is the Tasmanian tiger. I really do believe that it is still out there and roaming around. What do you think?
Oh, I completely agree. I mean, funny you should actually ask me that question, because a couple of weeks ago I was actually talking to a good friend of ours, and then she brought up a sighting of a Tasmanian tiger she had in Tasmania, in the southern part of the island. She was riding on a motorbike, and they're doing a bike tour around Tasmania, and they just happened to pull over to the side of the road, and she basically just stepped off to stretch her legs, and right in front of her, this striped creature. Well, the hind end was obviously striped, so the back end of this creature was striped, but it was very sort of very sleek looking, brownish sort of greyish fur, and it just seemed to have galloped along into the bush, and it just had that classic resemblance of a Tasmanian tiger. So no, 100%. They've seen them on mainland in Australia. They've had a lot of sightings in Tasmania. So look, to be honest, I do believe that they are out there. They're just a very, very shy creature.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, this creature is supposed to be extinct since 1931. We're coming up on a century of that pretty quick here. And I don't know why. I just believe this one is still out there because Australia and the islands around just have so much remote land and remote areas for something like this to easily hide. I mean, would I be wrong on that theory?
Not at all. No, I mean there's impenetrable bushland here. I mean, to give you an idea, there is this green belt that goes from the tip of Queensland, northern end of Australia, all the way down to Victoria, and you can actually follow this green belt without being seen or without bumping into housing or anything like that. So it's a natural green belt, and you can actually follow that. So, and there are places there that are impenetrable. Like there are mountain ranges that just simply unforgiving, and some very, very remote locations. And it is quite possible that there are these creatures and other creatures that we believe that have long been extinct can potentially live out there. I mean, an example, sorry, is the Woolamai pine, which was discovered in the 1990s. Now, this pine actually comes from a part of the Blue Mountains, and it's in a gully there that was only sighted accidentally in the 90s by, I think, the national parks. And the Woolamai pine dates back to over 65 million years ago, to the Cretaceous period, when dinosaurs ruled the earth. So that's how long this species have been around, and it was long thought to have been extinct. But no, they exist. So again, look, this is just a classic example of something that exists in a remote part of the wilderness, and there are many areas there that humans haven't been to because of the remoteness and because of the terrain. So yeah, definitely.
What do you think the numbers are on this creature? Do you think there's 100 of them, 50 of them, 200, 500 that are just in these sporadic locations and, trying to rebuild their own species?
I couldn't give you a number, but what I can say that there is a decent population considering the widespread reports that have been coming in. And these reports have been coming in from anywhere, all over the east coast of Australia. There have been sightings in Western Australia, South Australia, and naturally in Tasmania. So for these sightings to occur all around the continent, there has to be a decent population out there. And these are only the ones that we're seeing. Not counting the ones, obviously, which is impossible at this point in time, of those that we're not seeing.
Are people in Australia, Tasmania, are they quite protective now of this creature, where if they do see it, they're not reporting it because they just want to leave it alone to try and hopefully see it come back?
Well, there's definitely a conservation element to it, and there are people who think that way, and I have great respect for those people, because the last thing you need is reporting these animals at a specific location and having, who knows who going in there and interfering with their habitat. So, yeah, definitely there is an element of conservative or I've lost my words. There's an element of protection, definitely. But look, at the end of the day, there are the people out there who will report it, and there are those who simply misidentify it for something else. And we have to also accept the fact that there is a lot of misidentifications out there. So what portion or what ratio we're looking at, I mean, it's anyone's guess. But there's definitely an element of protection. There's no doubt about that.
Have there been any videos that you have seen that have convinced you that this creature is still 100% alive?
There have been some videos that have been taken. But again, they're very unclear. So look, a smoking gun is very, very hard to get because these sightings happen at random. And when you see these things, you try to decode what you're seeing, because you're looking at it and you think, well, it looks like a fox, but it doesn't move like a fox. Is it a wild dog? I don't know what this is. And by the time you think, crikey, I've got to grab my camera or my phone out to take a film of it, look, this thing is long gone anyway. And a lot of these videos are done with very low resolution cameras, or even with a phone. And even if you zoom in, I mean, these cameras have got very small sensors, and you're not going to get the best video out of them. Look, at this point in time, I don't feel that we do have a smoking gun, but if we do have one, that I don't think it's been displayed to the public yet.
Mm-hmm. What would it mean to your area, to your country, and so on and so forth, the entire Australasia area, if all of a sudden this creature was found to be alive?
I think that would open up a whole new can of worms, to be honest. To give you an idea, the Black Panther in Australia, I have a good friend of mine who is part of a university, and they were ready to go public with a confirmation that the Black Panther is in fact alive and living in certain regions of Australia. And in the last hour, I think, of actually going to the media or press to make this declaration. It was an official declaration, would have been an official declaration. Someone put a stop to it. So, look, I do feel that it would open up a whole new can of worms, and I think it would come down to environmental protection. I think it would affect a lot of industries out there, especially the logging industry. I think conservation would be what we would consider as proper land and environmental conservation. I think the law would change, because the environmentalists, especially those people who are responsible for protecting our environment and our forestry, would have to sit down and would have to rework their laws and the way we consider what land conservation truly means. So there would definitely be a major change, I think, in our regulations. And I think that it would be a very expensive exercise, but I think there would be a snowball effect, and it would affect a lot of industries. The thing is, though, you just don't know how this would affect things like the tourist industry as well, how it would affect real estate, because how do people respond to an official declaration that something that's believed to have gone extinct now roams the wilderness? And if a confirmation like that would get out, we simply don't know how the public would react to it and how that would affect our economy. So it's a very interesting question, and I think a lot of the responses would be very delicate.
Never mind poaching, because the minute that you come back and say this creature is real, that opens up a whole big door for poachers looking for that instant multi-million-dollar paycheck in order to get one for some narcissist collection.
Absolutely. And I think also largely, I think trafficking overseas for something like this into certain countries would have an extreme value. Absolutely. I think, poaching is just one of many issues, I think, that would be raised. So even if there was confirmation through, or even if they do have evidence, and I'm talking about universities here and officials, even if they do have evidence of habitats, and if they do have, or if they have captured these creatures in the wild and they are studying them, I don't think that they're going to bring this out into the open anytime soon.
Is there a push to get the Yowie and its fellow creatures like it under some sort of protection order as well?
The way the Yowie is looked at and considered it's very different to what it is, say, in the Americas, because in Australia, it's still a topic of extreme, debate. And the national parks, they know about their existence. Some official governmental bodies know about their existence. They do everything in their power to make sure that the information doesn't get out. They make sure that, and I solely believe that there are times that when they shut these national parks or sections of the national parks off due to either roadworks or other, for other reasons, and it may have to do with landslides and so forth that would endanger those people who are visiting. But look, sometimes you go into these regions that were closed off for 6 months and you look for any kind of roadworks or anything like that, and there's no sign or evidence of that actually happening or happened in the past. So it's quite possible that they do shut certain areas of the national parks off, maybe to do with migration, maybe to do with or for other reasons, we don't know. But what we do know is that there are rangers out there that do know and have seen these creatures out in the wilderness, but they're definitely not willing to go, in front of a camera or go, or make official statements about it.
I have a few questions from our audience coming on in here. I'd like to get some of them in. Let's start off with Sovereign here, who is asking, what types of Yowie stick structures have you found, and what type of wood was used? Were they made with bamboo or something different?
Well, bamboo is not an indigenous tree or plant in Australia, but the tree structures that we've seen, and we've actually encountered a lot of these tree structures, and that was in the first Yowie documentary that I did, Track Search for Australia's Bigfoot. Some of the tree structures were unbelievable, and one particular one which is a poster that I've made, and that was a photo that I took of one tree structure. It was in the shape of the letter T. So what you had is one part of the tree, or half of the tree, was actually ripped off, and the top section was placed on top and very, very well balanced. Now, this tree was massive. It was probably about a diameter of about 30 centimeters, maybe even more. So when I say massive, it was quite big, considering, for a human to actually do something like that would be virtually impossible. So this tree was basically snapped in half, and the top part of it, which was still quite large, was placed across the top section in a form of a letter T. We have the X's here as well, which I understand it's something that has been witnessed over your side, Dave. So there are these X's. So these X's have been placed in certain areas. Tree breaks, and a lot of these trees are either eucalyptus or tea trees. So they are indigenous trees that have been, have been utilized to create these structures. But these are some of the more common structures, and the most common one I do believe are tree breaks. So your standard tree breaks pointing in a certain direction, and X's.
Wow. Yeah, I've found a lot of X's around here, but you got to be careful with those, because you don't want, to forget that Mother Nature can do some pretty amazing things with on her own with trying to, make these X's with blowing trees down and weaving them into other areas. It's kind of interesting how you just have to be able to watch. The ones we found in our Sasquatch area, you could actually see at the top that they were interwoven between 2-3 trees, so it was kind of interesting to see how that played out compared to just trees that fell into that area. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And this is something that you always have in the back of your mind. Is this a natural occurrence? So ultimately, whoever's doing the research will look around and see what kind of trees are close by. Is there a possibility that these branches could have just fallen down? Another interesting one that's come to mind is that tree sticks. So sticks have actually been wedged deep into the ground, and these seem to be markers that we've discovered over in certain areas where there seems to have been activity. Now, there was one particular spot that there was a lot of these, and that was when we were filming the Australian Yowie research, where they had the thermal image or thermal video of two Yowies. And as we were sort of following these guys to the location, they actually pulled us over and said, okay, well, over there you can actually see these sticks being shoved into the ground. And as you walk up, these thin sticks have actually been forcefully pushed in. So when you have something falling off a tree, obviously due to the weight of it, it's not going to have a lot of weight. And even if it falls down and does stick into the ground, if the soil is quite soft, I mean, okay, it might stick in about an inch, maybe, if you're lucky, but these things were rammed in deep. So yeah, they were quite interesting structures it's markers rather than structures that we discovered.
Do you have a lot of trees down there that are turned up, like rooted and turned upside down and shoved back in the ground?
I personally haven't seen anything like that. Almost doesn't mean that it hasn't actually happened, but I don't know of any. No, mainly what we have seen with large trees, where they've actually been basically like that T structure that I explained to you earlier, basically placing one tree on top of another, almost like a seesaw. We have seen that.
That's incredible. Incredible. Attila Kaldi is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We got 3 minutes to go before we have to go to break at the bottom of the hour. Let's get to another question here. It's a UFO question from our UFO whistleblowers friend. Do you think they are manufacturing UFOs underground in Australia?
Well, it's a possibility. I mean, UFOs are essentially unidentified flying objects, so we don't particularly know what they are, but there's a good chance that it may happen here. I mean, just like there's Area 51 in the States, I mean, we have very similar things over here as well in Australia. So anything's possible.
Well, I mean, you do have Pine Gap. And
that is correct.
Have you ever really sat down and investigated Pine Gap?
No, but I think Pine Gap is one of those places that you just don't really want to get involved in, because that is more on a level of national security. It's more. I think that I don't believe that they're manufacturing anything that we'll classify as an unidentified flying object or flying saucers or anything that appear to look foreign in nature. I do believe that they're more radio based and communications based rather than physically creating or back engineering technology.
Right. Okay. Have there been any Yowies noticed around Pine Gap and other military bases?
That's a good question. I really don't know how to answer that, because I don't believe so, no. But I do know that some military people have bumped into these creatures in military training grounds, but these military training grounds are heavily forested areas. Some of them are rainforests, and some of them are very remote.
Love it. Love it. Okay, we got time for one or two more questions here. Let's go to Sovereign again. Have you noticed any Yowies or had reports of Yowies going into towns, maybe dumpster diving, looking for food?
No, but there was one story up in Kilcoy in Queensland, which has got the big Yowie statue there. And my friend of mine was telling me that he spoke to someone who apparently, I think this is a handed down story. Apparently there was a Yowie that was sighted in a large bin near a food processing plant. A meat processing plant. So whether it was an abattoir or whatever, but what they did do is dispose of a lot of offcuts and things like that they weren't going to use. So obviously they dumped them into this big dumpster, but there was apparently a sighting of a Yowie going through that dumpster.
Wow. We have you for another 30 minutes, Attila Kaldi, and this has been just incredibly fun once again, and I'm so excited to bring you back to our audience here on Spaced Out Radio. And when we return from the break here at the bottom of the hour, more monster talk, more Yowie, more of your questions. It's all more with Attila Kaldi, our special guest, director, movie creator, documentarian out of Sydney, Australia. He's been doing this for 20 plus years, searching for answers of high strangeness. We will return on Spaced Out Radio right after this. Stay tuned. All right, we are clear.
All is good.
Wow, this is flying by.
It is. I hope I'm not waffling too much.
No, you're doing great tonight, my man. Doing great.
Oh, sensational. So I'm actually now starting to film a documentary on UFOs. Oh, that is fantastic, mate.
Stuck right in there.
That is sensational. How good is that? Mate, such talent. How good is that?
Thanks. I appreciate it, man.
No worries, mate. That's fantastic.
Oh, it's been great. Good job, Filth, tonight.
Thanks. I appreciate it. Stories are great. I love it. It's pretty fresh change from like, well, let's talk about Mothman in Chicago.
Okay.
Oh, I'm just saying it's interesting to hear stories from other places in the world.
From other places in the world. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, it's docos that we're sort of creating seems to be appreciated too over there, because it is coming from a completely different part of the world, and a lot of people don't realize what happens down under. And we have a lot of weird stuff down here, a lot of high strangeness.
You did a lot of ghost hunting, apparently. What are your ghosts like in there?
Well, yeah, I for a very long time I was actually filming paranormal reality TV shows, there is one place here that kind of trumped everything else, and that was an old abandoned hospital. And man, we had everything there. That's like the Skinwalker Ranch of Australia. That place, it was things that you would consider as demonic entities. I mean, we basically had everything there, and we were going back to that place over and over again for a number of years, and almost every time something went down, it was a very, very dark place. Like, I mean, as in not just appearance wise, but as in energy wise, very, very dark and ominous location. There's a lot of death associated with that place.
You got like an Area 51 of some sort there too?
We do, but I don't like talking about it. I got into a lot of shit over that, excuse the French. So, it's not something I will bring up.
Your hand slapped.
Sorry?
Got the hand slapped, eh?
I do have a security clearance as well, so I need to be careful what I talk about.
Just blame the Canadians.
What do you think about the work that Ross Coulthart has done over here, trying to break the UFO story?
Interesting. Look, I mean, it's interesting that they've just all of a sudden released all this information. I think there's something else going in the background, and I think that this potentially could be just a distraction from something else, something bigger.
Bigger as in?
I don't know. I just have this sensation that there's something brewing in the background that they're just trying to distract us from. And when I say us, I mean the entire globe, because it just seems to be too good to be true. After all these years of suppression and disinformation, I mean, I was in the middle of it here during my UFO years, and it got really messy. You guys have heard of John Maynard, ex-DIA fellow who was part of the Disclosure Project.
Yeah.
Now that we're off air, I'm able to use his name, but on air I wouldn't be able to. I used to work with Stephen Greer during the early years of the Disclosure Project, and actually had dealings with him personally in Australia, and that thing just got so messy. Oh, it was, yeah, it didn't get, it got very, very messy. Yeah, it's just some of the disinformation that got out there was just mind blowing, and the level that they go to hide that information is just incredible.
All right, guys, we have about 45 seconds. I want to say a big thank you to Debster, Free Your Mind, Cat Chaser, and Mike for the super chats tonight. Very much appreciate the love. If you haven't yet signed up for our Space Travelers Club, putting the link in the chat room. It's definitely a place you want to hang out and help create a community atmosphere. And let's see here. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We got great swag there. Yep, you can join that. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe, ring that bell. We are here 7 days a week for your listening entertainment. And here we go, everybody, in 3 seconds. We pass the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Reminder to all of you that if you missed portions of this show or others, check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do old Davey the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join our Space Travelers Club on Patreon. Let's continue on. Attila Kaldi is here tonight on the Mighty SOR. We are looking into all the monsters that run around down under. He is a filmmaker and documentarian out of Sydney, Australia. We have him till the top of the hour. Attila, thank you so much for being here tonight. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, David.
I want to ask you in regards to, getting back to the Yowie, because we have some audience questions here for you. And this one comes from UFO whistleblowers. Are the Indigenous people of Australia meditating and mind speaking with aliens and Yowies?
Well, I'm not sure about aliens, but the Yowie elements, there's definitely a very strong connection. And it is part, look, the Yowies are very strongly embedded in their culture, in the Indigenous cultures. That's part of their, it forms part of their stories, part of their songs, part of their dances, and and obviously their way of, the way they see the natural environment, the way they move through the natural environment, the attention that they pay to the smallest, road signs that other people would, I guess, disregard or would ignore. So, yeah, look, there is definitely a strong connection. Communication between the two cultures. I've heard of some elders actually being able to speak their language. And I've also heard that there is communication through just, I guess, using an extrasensory perception. So whether or not it's, how they, I guess, translate that communication, I'm not sure how that works. But there is definitely that sort of sixth sense connection between the two cultures.
I know up here, I recently, earlier this week, took a phone call from a local Indigenous elder from our area, and I'm hopefully going to meet with him this weekend to try and chat with him about some of the videos and stories that he has, that have been passed down. But I mean, there's a lot of other creatures that are running around. You've also dealt with hauntings. You've dealt with all sorts of UFO talk. What is a story outside of the Yowie that really sticks out with you, that really hits home?
Wow. I wouldn't know actually where to start because with hauntings and the UFO phenomena, I mean, it's very, very strong here in Australia. In fact, I've actually recently started a new project, and I'm basically reviewing or bringing back to life some of the old cases that occurred during the UFO flaps and UFO waves that happened here in Australia. And I've recently actually interviewed a well-known UFO researcher, Bill Chalker, and he essentially goes back when he first sort of indicated interest into the whole UFO phenomenon back in the 1960s. So he talks about UFO waves and UFO flaps from the 1950s, 1960s, all the way to the 2000s. And these are some of the things I'm quite interested in because I was actually caught in the middle of the UFO wave of 2001 here on the East Coast. So I personally was involved in that, and I guess that's what basically motivated me to actually, start on this project and bring some of these cases back to life. But some of the UFO encounters here are quite fascinating, and I can go on about that for hours and hours. But the hauntings and the interesting creatures and entities that people have witnessed here are just absolutely mind-blowing. And there was one particular location that we kept on going back to over and over again because it just kept giving on a paranormal level. And it was almost like the Australian version of the Skinwalker Ranch. I mean, it wasn't the ranch, it was an old abandoned facility. And there's a lot of death, there's a lot of tragedy that's linked and connected to that place. And some believe that on the grounds of that location, there's a mass gravesite that hasn't been located yet. So there's a lot of legends that surround this particular location. It's now a place that of disuse, so it's basically crumbled. It was built using asbestos, and most of that area, most of that building is no longer there. So, but when it was still in one piece, I and a small group of people had the privilege of actually going there and having experiences at this location. And I'm talking about some really wacky stuff that you would see in horror movies, but we actually did see these things. And yeah, like I said, there's just, I could go on until sundown and sun up. So there's so much that I could cover with this, but there's just it's a lot of amazing stuff that have happened out here.
All right, let's get to a question from Ross Dogs. There was a Yowie seen by 20 witnesses in Springbrook, Queensland in 1977. It was described as 3 meters tall, covered in hair, flat face, and walked like a crab. Well, sounds like our resident random guy. But what's your thoughts on this?
I believe that case is on the Australian Yowie research site. That case, I think if I remember correctly, it was a scout camp and a number of students actually witnessed this. And one of those students happened to, I think, became a senator in Parliament. And he actually did come forward and talk about this quite a number of years ago. So, yeah, if I think the best thing to do, and instead of me trying to sort of gather that information, if you really want more details on that particular case, if you go to the Australian Yowie research site, you'll be able to find more information about that.
All right, let's continue on here. We got more questions for you. Let's go to Sovereign. Have you noticed that kangaroos are either interdimensional or are being portaled around by UFOs?
Wow, I've never had a question like that asked, and I'm sorry, I really don't know how to answer that. But no, they're look, kangaroos are like deers in the Americas. They're just a common species of animals, marsupial here. There's really they are an adorable animal. They can get quite pesky and they can get quite dangerous. But I really don't know how to sort of connect those two, to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Let's go to Neil. Is Ayers Rock a paranormal hotspot?
Some people believe so, but some people believe that Indigenous spirits guard that area. People who've walked away with samples of Ayers Rock, and I've heard of these stories, and these are legends, have had misfortune and bad luck in their lives, so that a lot of people actually ended up sending them back. But no, it is definitely believed to have been guarded by Indigenous spirits. So it is a protected area as a result of that. So there's a very strong Indigenous connection to that location.
Okay, I do have to ask though, because I am petrified of the ocean. Petrified. All right. I do believe that megalodon still exists, or these giant great white super sharks that are 25 feet plus that are out there. Are you buying the story that somewhere in the oceans there, in the nice warm waters, that there could be a shark bigger than the great white out there?
It's a largely unexplored area, and all you need to do is just, I guess, just look at some of the reports that have been coming out from people who have had experiences with high strangeness that come from the ocean. I don't believe that to be impossible at all. Anything could live out there. It's some of the deepest parts of the ocean could harbor some really strange marine life, and who's to say that some of the old creatures may still, could still exist out there. I mean, they possibly can.
Yeah, I don't like hearing that. I don't like hearing that because I know it's there somewhere. Yeah, megalodon is out there somewhere. I'm just saying. You don't have to believe me, but that's okay. All right, let's go over to Neil here. Have the Aborigines ever conducted any curses that you know of?
I don't know. Yeah, it's one of those things that I personally never got involved in. So, yeah, I
Not a
really
problem.
can't answer that question, to be honest.
All right. Sovereign says there is a beach in Australia that has had a high number of people vanishing from there. Do you think it was a Yowie operating, or maybe a UFO or an alien race?
Yeah, I'd like to know what beach that is because I want to go there if that's the case. Yeah,
He
it'd be
is.
good to know. It'd be good to know what beach that is.
Yeah, I would like to know that too. I mean, I
Hmm.
know that there. I mean, you look at David Paulides and his work with the missing 411 up here. It's amazing how these hot spots of people vanishing just kind of apply all around North America. And I'm sure it's happening down there. Let's go to Jules here. Do you think sloths are what? Yeah, no, we're not asking that. Never mind. Okay, let's get back. Let's get back to some good questions, audience, if you don't mind. Good questions, please. All right, let's. I want to ask you regarding the Yowie again. Is it centralized on the southeast side? Are there a lot of reports on the west side of the continent, or in the central part?
Yeah, there is actually. Funny you should mention that because in a place where you feel that these animals could not exist, apparently they do. One particular thing, I had a conversation with a lady who used to be a nurse in Central Australia, very arid place, very rocky, desert-like, very dry, hot spot. When I say hot, I mean it's a very, very warm and hot climate there. And she was a nurse in this remote little location, and she was going on a hike, and she bumped into one of the local Indigenous people, and this person told her, look, you can go this way, that's quite safe, you'll be right. But I really wouldn't go down this other path because, and they had their own name for this creature that lives down there and you may not come back. So, this is in a very rocky, very dry, arid location. But again, you go to these places and sometimes you hear, a scientist come back and say, oh, look, we found this massive underground cave system in the middle of Australia that's full of water. So look, at a place like that, if there's ample drinking water and if there is game, in places like that, you have a lot of snakes and goannas and a lot of sort of reptilian type creatures. These folk may have adapted to that climate, may have adapted to that terrain. So they have their own diet. But, as long as they have water, drinking water, they could be living in the middle of the desert for all we know. But this is just a classic example of a location which is, again, very arid, and that would be the last place you would think a Yowie would live. But no, they do live all around the continent.
Yeah, that's absolutely great. I mean, do they vary in size from where their location is? I know you talked that there's small ones and there's ones up to 15 feet tall.
Well, one Indigenous friend of mher, she's done a fair bit of research into Indigenous law, and she actually appears in Tracking the Law documentary film. And her ancestry comes from South Australia, and they talk about the difference in fur color from different regions. So again, it comes down to adaptation. That the fur, perhaps even the physical structure or even the characteristic may differ from those who live in the desert. Maybe their size might be different compared to those that are found on the East Coast in the woodlands there, or even up north in Queensland in the dense rainforests. So yes, there is difference, and primarily I believe of what I've been able to identify is primarily the color of the fur. So that obviously is more adaptable to their color, who live obviously in the desert regions, would be more of a amberish and more of a lighter color than those in the forested area.
What seems to pique the Yowies' interest? Like up here, as I kind of mentioned earlier, they seem to be very curious in my area, whether it's children laughing and playing, whether it's people who are farming, whether it's people who are sitting around a campfire, drinking a beer and having a laugh. Do they seem to be as curious down there as they are up here?
Again, it's a good question. I think that of all the sightings that I've, and all the reports that I've read and the experiences that I've personally had, they tend to, if you're in their region, if you're in their hunting ground, or if you're in a region where they're active, that would definitely stir interest. So they would definitely obviously would be under observation at all times. And if push comes to shove, then obviously what will happen is what happened to us, that you get escorted or herded out. In a way of curiosity, a lot of the sightings here are basically bumping into these guys accidentally, and the reactions were mainly was to leave and get out of our area. These were primarily the reactions. So it's very hard to answer if there is anything in particular that would stir their curiosity.
Do they like toys? Do they like gifting sites?
Gifting is definitely. I know that some of the guys up in North Queensland have placed out rocks and crystals and woven little artifacts that they made themselves, and they were exchanged. They were moved, so they actually got sticks back, and they got certain ornaments that were made of natural, debris and whatnot, that was actually gifted back to these people. But sometimes they just take the the offerings, and they don't return them with anything, but sometimes actually do out of bushcrafted material.
So when you look at the gifting sites, like for instance, up here we use a lot of toys,
Hmm.
like and colored rocks, like marbles and everything that seems to get them excited. Uh, are you pretty much putting out the same?
Well, I'd say so, yes. So, I mean, in this particular incident, I know that these guys actually put out crystals and different forms of, rocks, pebbles from the local creek or from the local river, that have been sort of have been washed to a smooth surface. So they are very appealing to the eye. So they actually use these rocks as gifts, and yeah, they have actually attracted attention, and they have actually taken them.
Okay, so this creature doesn't seem to be violent. It doesn't seem to be proactive in hunting down humans or anything along those lines. Have you had a lot of Yowie sightings in UFO hotspots?
Well, the Blue Mountains here uh, have had its fair share of UFO activity. So that is considered to be a UFO hotspot. And it also happens to be a highly active area, or used to be anyway before the fires, a highly active area for Yowies. And look, to be honest, I personally think that is coincidental. I mean, it's a massive. The Blue Mountains National Park is massive. It's a huge area, so naturally you're going to get all sorts of wildlife living there, especially in certain habitats where there are rivers and there are streams there. So you have a collection of different elements there that would form perfect habitats for not just for known species, but also for unknown species like the Yowie. Now, whether or not there is a connection with the UFO phenomena and the Yowies there in the Blue Mountains, I personally don't think so. I just think it's just coincidental that you have both of those elements or strange activities that happen in that region. I mean, again, it's a vast wilderness, so anything can happen down there.
Okay, we got 2 minutes to go here. What do you want people to know about the cryptids that are down in your area that you're researching?
Well, there's actually quite an interesting collection here, and the Dogman seems to have popped up fairly recently with a friend of mine who runs the Creepers Cryptid channel, John Kershaw. Now, John was out kayaking fishing when he actually saw this or took a photo of this Dogman, and he actually appears in Tracking the Law towards the end of the documentary film. But it appears now that we have dogman-like creatures here. Now, whether or not that is actually a remnant of a belief to have been extinct species, carnivorous species a carnivorous predator, marsupial predator, the Thynocoleo carnifex, which was effectively a marsupial lion. We don't know, but it is a possibility that could potentially be the case. The dogman phenomena fits really unusually in what we see and know in Australia. But people have sighted these creatures here around the Sydney area, near a populated area region, which is quite scary in itself. And we have actually seen witness marks on a tree, massive claw marks that have been scratched into the body of the tree that extends 5 to 6 meters, even higher. Now, you have to understand, we don't have bears, and even the koalas have got very little small paws, and when they climb up the trees, they hardly leave any evidence. But these are very deep and very large scar marks that have been scratched into the tree at extreme height. So we are here thinking, what the hell could have caused that? Dogman, or perhaps even a creature that we think that may have gone extinct 40,000 years ago that could have surfaced.
Attila, where can people find your films? We got 30 seconds.
Yeah, well, basically on Amazon Prime, on Tubi TV. There's a lot of platforms over in the States that you can actually find it. If you go to paranormalinvestigators.tv, you'll be able to find most of my content there and the links to the appropriate platforms.
Love it. Love it, my friend. Attila, thank you again for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. You are a awesome researcher. Keep up your great work.
Thank you so much, David. Much appreciated. And thanks for having me again.
Attila Kaldi, everybody. Coming up next, Steve Stockton from Among the Missing. Then a freshly head-shaved Tim Senor joins us for the UFO report. We got a jam-packed hour number 3 next. Yeah, we're probably going to get fired up tonight. Why not? Spaced Out Radio continues right after this. Great show, Attila.
Thank you
Great
so
show.
much, mate. But I can never forget that question, are sloths interdimensional creatures?
Yes. I think Jules has had a couple of white claws tonight, so she made me laugh. You made me laugh with that one.
That's awesome. Love it.
Yes. All right, buddy. You take
All
care.
right, matey. You too. Take care. Thanks very much. All the best.
Bye-bye. Bye. You guys are silly. You guys are absolutely silly. Yes. Ross Dog, how you doing, buddy? All right. Random Gee, Ross Dog. Where's the other one to add the trifecta? Where's NSA guy? We need some NSA guy tonight. I'll be right back. right. We having fun yet? Can't wait to get in the forest tomorrow. And Sunday. Two Heads, how you doing? Hey, there's little Robbie G. Move over, peasants. Oh, you're going to laugh at that for a while. Big thank you tonight to Ross, Deb, Free Your Mind, Cat Chaser, and Mike for the great super chats. We very much appreciate the love and support around here, guys. Thank you very much. And if you haven't already, join the Space Travelers Club. Come have some fun with us. Trying to build a community. We need you there. Moon Freedom, how you doing? Come join the community. It's like $5 a month. That's it. $5. Shop at our store, spacedoutradio.com. Don't forget to put May 10th to 12th, 2024 on your calendar. We are going to Reno for this third annual fan party. Here we go.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Here we go with the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears wherever you are on this beautiful planet we call Earth. Hello to everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates around North America, digitally on Odyssey Radio, TalkStream Live, and KPNL. All of our archives are free. Join us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Jarvie. Jarvie is your password. Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets the password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website, spacedoutradio.com. We have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, read the Newswire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and you can join the Space Travelers Club on Patreon. It is that time of the night where we bring in Steve Stockton, say hello to him from Among the Missing YouTube channel for another creepy story.
Hello, friends. Welcome to Among the Missing YouTube channel on Spaced Out Radio. I'm Steve Stockton, and I'm about to take you on an unbelievable journey of people just like you. Their stories and encounters will haunt us on Among the Missing. Join me. Let's walk and see. One of our recent strange disappearance and reappearance cases occurred on September 22nd, 2012, in the Ozarks region of Arkansas. It turned out to be one of our most unusual cases. In the afternoon of that same day, Eddie Huff and Linda Ardiega, brother and sister, set out for a day of hiking to explore the forest of the area with their friends. There appeared to be something amiss, though. Eddie returned alone, claiming that he had left his sister at a relative's house. Even more so, when it was discovered that the 53-year-old woman who Eddie had claimed to have left at the relative's house was simply not there. It appeared that Eddie had forgotten everything that had happened and was now confused and a little disoriented, to put it mildly. There was a search party organized, and in the end, Ardiega was found wandering in the deep woods in the middle of a seemingly random location. Furthermore, it seemed to be that whatever incident had transpired in the preceding minutes that led her to this point had shocked and unnerved her in the end, leading her here in the first place. The details of what she later claimed were murky at best. She claimed that she had volunteered to go find help for her brother after he had supposedly suffered some kind of injury. She would later say that as she walked through the woods, she encountered other hikers who, in spite of her best efforts, didn't seem to be able to hear or see her when she called out to them, even though they were walking in the same woods. Even more disturbingly, she also claimed to have witnessed strange, shadowy figures that appeared to be watching her from the forest. The next thing she knew, she was coming to in the forest with search and rescue calling her name. As of now, there's no explanation for this rather bizarre incident. Let me know what you think in the comments.
So strange. So strange. And, that's why we love Steve Stockton around here, bringing those strange stories each and every night on Spaced Out Radio. Man, if you want more, just go over to youtube.com/Among the Missing. Hit subscribe, ring that bell, as Steve has new stories coming at you very, very often. All right, from the mysterious to the UFOs. It's time for the UFO report. We bring in our resident Timbit, Little Timmy Senor.
Nobody's gonna know. They're gonna know.
Big man coming off big news from NASA going on up, and I'll tell you, lots of things going on. But Tim, I'm heading back into the forest. Gonna go look for some Sasquatch. You know my area. You know what it's like. You don't like it out there, do you?
You're a brave man. You're very, very brave. And I know you usually take family members with you. So you've got a courageous team there in the Scott household. But I mean, I've been out there. You definitely have stuff going on. So good luck to you. Take a camera.
Do you want to come?
I want to. I want to.
I know. I know.
I want that experience for every one of your SOR listeners too, because Dave brings you the stories, but I mean, try and imagine next time he tells you one of these stories, being there with him, because he's all like charging towards it. As you and I, the critical thinkers, we're like, wait a second. We should be going the other way. This guy's charging towards Bigfoot, so he's our hero.
It's all good, isn't it?
It's all good in the woods.
Oh, I know you love it.
I do.
I know you love it.
Yeah.
You came back a changed man.
I've seen things.
Mm-hmm.
Indeed.
I want to, without going into details, okay? How can, for people who don't know, because you're a pretty skeptical guy, you are someone who is very nuts and bolts, and we've discussed that over the year plus that we've been doing this together. And we've argued about it. We've talked about it. We've had some fun at each other's expense over it. But when you see things for the first time that you can't explain, Tim, coming from that scientific nuts and bolts area, how does it change you?
I think that it makes you realize that you can capture this stuff, on your gear if you go in prepared. You can get evidence of it, which helps me to wrap my head around it because I can review it over and over and scrutinize it. That's perfect for the nuts and bolts people, having evidence, right? And so coming out of there with that was massive. But I think experiencing it firsthand is what it's all about, because no matter how much evidence I produce, being in those woods and seeing, expecting one thing and seeing another constantly, I think that's what the phenomenon is all about. It's not repeating. It's not what you expect. It's incredible. It's literally incredible. And so, it is, I see why you get so excited and jazzed and you like to go out so often. For me, I'm still, in that, I'm reeling from the information still is a pretty good way to put it. I'm not as eager perhaps as you are to get back out there. Of course I will, because it's my job, but it's it's a little overwhelming. It's daunting, and when you come face to face with it, it can be scary. Of course, that was my reaction. But yeah, I mean, everyone should live it, before you pass judgment on any of this stuff. Try and find it. You have to go out and actually look for it.
Yeah, but how does it change you personally? How have you changed emotionally and what you believe, what you disbelieve?
I don't think anything has changed in me yet. I'm still that same skeptic, because even though I've lived it and I've seen it, I still don't know what it is, and I have evidence of it. I still don't know what the evidence means. So I'm still not really that changed, even though I've gone there and back. It's going to take a lot, and that's why it's such a tough topic. It's going to take a lot to sway the public individually, and then even congressionally or governmentally or
You
internationally.
are dodging this
it's
so
tough.
well. You
Well,
are dodging this so
I'm being
well.
honest. I really don't know yet. I'm being 100% honest with you. Even living it, breathing it, seeing the evidence, I don't know yet. I don't know. So I haven't shifted, except that I'm not as fearful of it. I guess that's the one thing that's changed. I know I can handle it, get into the routine of it.
Mm-hmm. I think it's great. It's an open learning experience for
Yeah.
everything that is going on, and you had your eyes opened, and can't wait to do it again, my man. Cannot
sure.
wait to do it again. All right, we might as well get into it. All right, because it's gonna come out, and I'm just gonna get really, really frustrated. Coming off the reaction of the NASA, I don't even know what to call it, press conference, I guess. There, all of the scientific people out there are cheering NASA on. Great job, guys. You guys really hit it out of the park with this report, including the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies, otherwise known as the SCU. I want to read you something from Kevin Wright. He wrote this for the SCU website. I want to get your opinion, Tim. SCU welcomes NASA's historic UAP report and recommendations. SCU wholly endorses NASA's decision to follow its study team's recommendation and embrace the scientific questions surrounding the nature of unidentified anomalous phenomena. The Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies released the following statement regarding NASA's independent study team report on UAP. And once again, SU wholly endorses NASA's decision to follow the study team's recommendation and embrace the scientific questions surrounding UAPs and appoint a NASA director of UAP research. NASA is the right U.S. agency to lead this effort. It is noteworthy that NASA stated in their report, quote, NASA, with its extensive expertise in these domains and a global reputation for scientific openness, is in excellent position to contribute to UAP studies within the broader whole of government framework led by the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, otherwise known as AARO. SCU agrees with the first portion of that statement, not the last. NASA is our premier aerospace organization with the necessary capabilities to address the UAP question with scientific openness. NASA should lead the entire UAP science endeavor over the long term, not AARO. So a little bit of shots fired there. AARO is tied to national defense organizations and is driven by the needs of our defense industry, which necessarily cannot promote scientific openness. While we acknowledge that AARO is necessary to investigate the defense-related aspects of UAP, SCU strongly recommends that Congress provide the necessary funding and resources to allow NASA to independently lead U.S. UAP scientific research programs, as in France, UAP research is led by the nation's civilian space agency. Further, NASA's UAP program should be funded to support academic research within our nation's universities and scientific organizations to further the study of UAP. This necessitates funding and guidance directly from Congress, not via AARO. SCU shares NASA's view that there is a need for better data, and we offer knowledge resources supporting NASA in this endeavor. SCU has expertise in how to collect useful UAP data from the public, how to triage reports, and how to conduct field investigations of significant sightings. In addition, we have deeply historical perspective on how to engage the public on UAP and how the public historically reacts to the different elements of this topic. I want to stop right there because the SCU without has been kind of a private group the whole time. So saying that they actually know how to get data from the public and keep the public engaged in this topic, I want to use the word BS here. Okay, I really do. I'm going to call BS on that. They go on to say, as we stand at the crossroads of discovery, let our choices be informed by the thirst for knowledge rather than the constraints of secrecy. SCU champions NASA's leadership in this endeavor and implores Congress to empower our premier aerospace organization, ensuring the truths. Is anybody a little bit offended by the word truth here? About UAP are explored with transparency, yeah, right, integrity, and the collective brilliance of our nation's scientific community. SCU promotes and encourages the rigorous scientific examination of UAP, commonly known as unidentified flying objects, UFOs. SCU comprises scientists, engineers, members of the high-tech and defense industries, former military, and other professionals utilizing scientific principles, methodologies, and practice to advance the study of UAP observed and reported around the globe. Okay, I got a few comments on this, Tim, but I want to hear your thoughts first.
Oh, you're going to love my thoughts on this because I'm 98% behind this, and I like this statement. Do I believe that they are people that, live by this same regiment? No, not necessarily. I do like that you pointed out the whole public relations aspect. But one part I would like to point out that I feel like wasn't highlighted here was that if we are going to commission NASA, via Congress and have them be the touch point for this topic, then we need them to have access to classified information so that they can get all the details. And whether they transmit all of that information to the public or not, we can discuss at a later time. But I feel like the people that are studying UFOs, not UAP, but UFO, need to have access to classified information because that's where all this lies. It lies above top secret. And so in order for this to really go through and bypass AARO and to do all the things that they're putting in this presentation together, NASA would have to acquire information that it currently says it doesn't have. So not just the information it has, because obviously we'd love to see what it has in its own files, but all that aside, we need them to have access to classified governmental information and satellite data for that matter.
Well, I'm very shocked. Let's talk about what I'm shocked about right now, because when we come back from the break in about 5 minutes, we're going to get into where this BS needs a real deep sniff test. Okay, I want to swear so bad, and I can't because of our radio stations, and FCC and CRTC guidelines. Okay, but I got to tell you. When I read this earlier, I was pulling out my hair. Okay. And I got beautiful hair, Tim. You know that.
You do,
Okay.
buddy.
I do. All right. But I want to get to this, though. I am very shocked because the SCU tries to be extremely apolitical. And the fact that they took a shot right over the bow of Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick and AARO, and to me, Enigma Labs, which I kind of find funny because a gentleman in the UFO community who is Alejandro Rojas is the PR director for both SCU and the Enigma Labs. So the fact that his organization kind of took a shot at his other organization by not supporting Arrow, and we know Arrow is a fan of Enigma Labs, I found this quite intriguing that they would actually fire that shot over the defense portion of this aspect. What's your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, it seems like there may be a scramble and some infighting. I know from my understanding that Kirkpatrick is not really excited about his role. And we know that NASA has assigned a new liaison between NASA and the government. And we can talk a little bit more about the debacle that took place in its announcement. But I do see that there's kind of a scramble, kind of a hot potato topic, if you will. Nobody really seems to want to have to take the reins, if you will. And the people that are in the know that want to take control of this are being absolutely stonewalled and pushed to the side. That's what it appears from the outside.
Yeah, I really, really am surprised by that. I'm very surprised by the aspect of it all. It that adds such a layer of confrontation that we are not used to at this level, that it really makes me wonder, what is truly going on. And it really, to me, shows that there is a real sense of conflict between the government and the military and the scientific community regarding this subject. And
Yeah.
it also shows the lack of transparency. And considering a lot of those scientists within the SCU, even on their board of directors, have direct ties or contracts with military agencies in the United States, this is a little dumbfounding, because if I'm sitting there as a military advisor and I see one of my scientists who's in the SCU and I see the SCU statement, I'm having a conversation with that scientist saying, is this a group that you should really be participating in, considering your contract and your job is to work with us?
Yeah, that's right. And also remember in the very beginning of the creation of this NASA think tank, they outwardly debunked one of the military videos that SCU had confirmed as UAP. And they said, quote, through simple trigonometry, they were able to resolve this as being something mundane. So we know that there was early conflict potentially between SCU and the NASA think tank group, at least. That doesn't necessarily represent NASA, because this was an independent group of scientists that were put together to come up with some resolutions on how NASA could potentially tackle this topic. They weren't giving any resolution on UAP or UFO. And I think perhaps a lot of people are confused on that. This was a group of people that were assigned the simple task, you should have been, excuse me, if they could have agreed on what UAP even was, just to say that. But they were assigned, yeah, and so they were really assigned to help NASA construct a method to even tackle this topic. And I think that, they came back with a few things, and we can cover that when we come back from break. But they did have some minor baby steps forward for NASA and what they profess to want to undertake, because they do feel that this is an issue that needs to be talked about and transparently and thoroughly investigated.
Transparency and NASA do not go along. I mean, that's oil and water right there. And we're going to get into that and more. And where did the SCU drop the ball on their support of the NASA UFO report? When we return on Spaced Out Radio with little Timmy Senor, our resident Timbit, here on the UFO report. We'll be back with the final half hour right after this. You want to stick around after the show for a bit? Or no?
Sure. Yeah. No, I got time tonight. Should drag in a surprise guest, maybe.
Maybe. Jeffrey Green, how you doing?
I should. Oh, you know what? I left my phone up in my son's bed. I was reading to him. I'm gonna go grab it real quick.
Go get it. Careful, random guy, because little Robbie G there, he's going to be walking the red carpet here in Hollywood in the next couple days. Yep. He's already practicing his don't make eye contact with me, people. I'm on the red carpet here. Rob effing G. I know you're laughing, big guy. Hello, Timmy.
Yeah. Oh, you are gonna laugh. You are gonna laugh. This is great.
What are we laughing at?
Oh, you'll see. Cool stuff. So what do you got going on this weekend?
Myself, the boy, and little Marky Spender are heading out tomorrow afternoon. I got to work in the morning, but we're heading out tomorrow afternoon to do a little bit of searching. That'll probably lead to tomorrow night, which could lead to some hot dogs being grilled over an open fire, which would be nice.
And you guys survived the slow cooker, so how is that? I need some follow-up.
Yeah, that roast was good, dude.
Awesome.
That roast was good. Yeah. Just finished it 2 nights ago.
Fantastic.
Oh yeah. Hey, Phil the Stalker, how you doing? Yeah, that worked out well. You know, I don't get Taco Bell like you do. You know,
You got to have a family member that works there, and then it's just sweet, sweet living. I never eat it personally. But
hey,
yeah.
we should remind people to put on their calendar May 10th to 12th. Little Timmy Senor is going to be there at the Silver Legacy Resort and Casino in Reno, Nevada for the 3rd annual can't even call it the Las Vegas fan party, the Reno SOR fan party. We are just about to get you some deals on some rooms here very quickly. Probably within the next couple of weeks, we'll have some updates on what to do. It's going to be much cheaper, people. Much cheaper than last year. Hotel costs, I think, is around $138 a night.
What? That's awesome.
Yeah, that beats the $300 we paid at the Golden Nugget. That's for sure. So we're going to be getting tickets available. We're going to get your confirmation and on the rooms and everything. And then we're going to start building up who our special guests are going to be. A big thank you tonight to Mike, Cat Chaser, Free Your Mind, Debster ×2, and Ross Dogs. And don't forget, you can join the Space Travelers Club. Highly recommend it. I put the link right there. It's a fun place. Come hang out with us. Let's build a family together over there. Here we go, everybody. Rounded third, we're headed for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Good to have you with us. My name is Dave Scott. Very much appreciate earning your listening ears. Reminder to all of you that if you missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives by going to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Find us on any major podcast network, Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and of course, any major podcast network on that as well. Our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bubblefoot, read the news wire, check out our swag. Follow us on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on Patreon. You can join the Space Travelers Club. Here we go. Tim Senor, UFO report. We're talking about the Scientific Coalition of UAP Studies giving the thumbs up, wholly endorsing NASA's Give Us Nothing press conference. I know you love this stuff. You support anything that will, endorse the UAPs. Timmy, just bugging you.
No, it's cool. I love four-letter words. And we know that NASA said Thursday that the study of UFOs will require new scientific techniques, including advanced satellites, as well as a shift in how unidentified flying objects are even perceived. And so the space agency released the findings after a year-long study in UFOs. And it looks like in its 33-page report, an independent team commissioned by NASA cautioned that the negative perception surrounding UFOs poses an obstacle to even collect the data. So officials said NASA's involvement should help reduce the stigma around what it calls UAPs, or unidentified anomalous phenomenon. And so in a quote, they say, "We want to shift that conversation about UAPs from sensationalism to science." And NASA Administrator Bill Nelson said that he promised an open and transparent approach. And so officials stressed the panel found no evidence that UAPs had extraterrestrial origin, but Nelson acknowledged with billions of stars in billions of galaxies out there, another Earth could definitely exist. And he says, "If you ask me, do I believe that there's life in a universe that's so vast it's hard for me to comprehend how big it is? My personal answer is yes." And so Nelson said at a news conference that his own scientists put the likelihood of another Earth-like planet at least 1 trillion. And so when pressed by reporters on whether the US or other governments are hiding aliens or otherworldly spaceships, Nelson simply said, "Show me the evidence." And so we've heard a lot of that, Dave, and that is a frustrating response. But we do know that NASA has said that it doesn't actively search for unexplained sightings. It operates a fleet of Earth-circling spacecraft that can help determine, for example, whether weather is behind a strange event. And so the 16-member panel noted that artificial intelligence and machine learning are essential for identifying rare occurrences, including UFOs. And so, Dave, they are putting a positive foot forward, but we know that along with this, at the end of it, it had a very kind of strange ending to it that left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, knowing that NASA refused at the time to name its new UFO boss. And so later we do know that it did release the name, but initially declining, it left a very strange feeling for everyone involved. And so now we do know that Mark McInerney, who was previously NASA's liaison to the Defense Department, will become the research director for the UAP, or the what I guess what they're calling it is the government's preferred term, UAP, overseeing the space agency's work on the topic and serving as communicator between the federal agencies on UFOs. So during the briefing with reporters earlier on Thursday, NASA officially declined to disclose the director's identity, citing potential threats. Right. And we've talked about that on this show, how this topic has really kind of driven the world a little mad. And
Well, Tim,
Dave,
I'm going to go off
please.
here because I see random guy in the chat, in our chat right now. I'm
Yeah.
not sure if he wants to come on now or he wants to wait till the end of the show. We'll leave that. We'll give him a few of those, in a while. But I'm going to tell you this. Here's where I 100% disagree with the SCU. Okay. I realize that there is a game being played and it's all about chess and it's all about political posturing and it's all about making the right move at the right time. I get that. I can appreciate that. I can also appreciate the endeavors that NASA is trying to do. The problem that we have is nobody wants to talk about the ugly whatever in the corner of the room, the ugly UFO in the corner of the room. And that is NASA has been blatantly lying about this subject since Bill Nelson, their executive director, came out and said, we got to look into these UAPs. Okay. What have we been stating for almost 2 years now? What's in your closet, Bill? What's in your closet? We know Mercury, Gemini, Apollo, the shuttle missions were all followed. Astronauts have said that. There are recordings of astronauts. There are recordings of test pilots who work for NASA and engineers and everybody in between who have had these endeavors happen. And the fact that NASA refuses to deal with that, they refuse to acknowledge their past regarding this subject, and their defenders are like, well, maybe they threw the files away. Maybe no, the audio is out there. We know the audio is out there because documentarian Darcy Weir out of Vancouver, British Columbia, already has pieces of those audio clips in his NASA documentaries about UFOs. We know it exists. So for NASA to play dumb, and for the SCU, who I have friends on the SCU, hell, Science Bob is part of the SCU. He is absolutely pissed right off by the SCU's support for NASA. Because what we are doing is political posturing because the SCU wants to be relevant. Okay, they are not relevant. They have never been transparent. They've never been for the media. They've never been for the publicity. They've only ever been for themselves to learn for the scientific community, which is great. Okay, be that way. Okay, but don't come out and support a bunch of liars. And that's exactly what NASA is. People should be pissed off about this. People have every right to be upset about this. Okay, because we're tired of the political game when it comes to UFOs. And there's not a soul out there that is calling out NASA. not even James Fox, when he had the opportunity to ask the question. He asked a bogus question. And I highly respect James Fox's work. Okay, I really do. But at what point does the public win? At what point does the public get the proper questions answered?
Yeah.
Okay, we know NASA is editing their questions. We know that they are watching very closely what is asked and what is not. Okay, why involve the public then if we can ask tough questions? Okay, NASA deserves zero breaks when it comes to this subject. They just don't deserve anything that comes their way on a positive end until they are ready to start answering questions about Apollo, Gemini, and Mercury. The photos, the video, the audio recordings that are out there. And I'm sorry that I get fired up. And I know over a bunch of shows I sound repetitive about what I am saying. Okay. But what we're dealing here is with the truth. And NASA is blatantly hiding its truth. They are blatantly hiding their past. Okay. They are blatantly hiding what they have done in the past, what they have recorded in the past, and what they know. And for them to play absolutely ignorant and stupid, I feel is an absolute disgrace. So when I see people like Ryan Graves, or I see people like the SCU giving them accolades for their report, I want to pull my hair out and just yell at the sky, because there's nothing transparent about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah.
I'm sorry
And
I'm upset. I'm sorry I'm
No.
wound up about it.
I understand, Dave, and I 100% understand. You're passionate about this and you're close to the subject, and you understand that this agency has been withholding information for decades and decades, and you're absolutely right. There's no arguing that fact, right? Now, before I get into the other side, I would love to also just say that they very openly demonstrated that their knee-jerk reaction to sensitive information is to withhold it. In the meeting there, we saw their initial secrecy when asked about the new person that would be the administrator for this group, right? And so we know that they came out saying that the main reason for the initial secrecy was that members of the independent study group had received threats, and Dan Evans, the assistant deputy associate administrator at NASA, told reporters that that was the initial reason, because that person had been subjected to a lot of, public scorn, I guess is how to put it. But their initial reaction was to withhold the information at a meeting that they had just said they were all about transparency. And it just seemed to be a very confusing message. And so I think that you are showing absolutely here how NASA traditionally handles information. Their knee-jerk reaction is to keep it secret and not share that information whatsoever. And so, Dave, I 100% understand why you feel that way. However, we have Arrow handling this topic right now. Now, other countries we know have successfully covered this topic, UAP, UFO, through their space agencies. And those are the people that are running
I'm
that.
not disagreeing with that, Tim.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing with that at all. NASA should be the ones looking into this.
Okay.
But we have to understand, NASA is not for the public. NASA is a military group that is run by the military on public dollars. Okay, the space agency is I believe falls under the Air Force, I believe.
Yep.
Air Force or Navy, one of the two.
Air Force.
Okay.
Yeah.
I agree 100% with you. This should be NASA dealing with this. But since Mercury and Gemini, we know they have lied. And before they can take this subject seriously, okay, this isn't Chief Wiggum from The Simpsons here, man, saying nothing to see here, move along, nothing to see here. This isn't this. They have the knowledge of these craft. They have the knowledge of the anomalies. They have the knowledge of an X-15 pilot flying at 315,000 feet until he is joined in the middle of nowhere by a UFO flying right beside him. And then the UFO takes off. Okay? We have this footage. We have the audio. It's all public. And for NASA to not even acknowledge that, and brilliant people like the SCU to not even acknowledge that, everybody can say, oh, baby steps, we're just putting these puzzle pieces together. BS. You've had almost 80 years. You've had 80 years to do this, 70 years to do this. Okay? And you've done nothing with it except screw the public. And that's what bugs me, man. That's what bugs me. Because if I was on the SCU, if I was a board member of the SCU, I would be saying, guys, we cannot support this. We could say we acknowledge the NASA report. Okay. We're we think that NASA's starting to take the proper steps. But until NASA comes clean with their history, we cannot fully endorse or support the NASA program. And any group that has the cojones to do that, that's the team we should support. Okay?
Dave,
but everybody's silent. MUFON silent. Newfork silent.
Yeah.
Everybody's silent.
Dave, come on. I think you're really circling around what you may or may not want to say right now, but I'm going to say it for you. The people that have come out vocally in support of this are looking for what? Dollars. Definitely 100%.
Exposure for dollars.
Especially when, if they'd had any access to what the speech was going to be like, they knew that NASA was going to be putting an outreach out there to public and private investigations that are going on right now and organizations. Okay. So, I mean, we didn't want to say it, but yes, we can figure that these people that are applauding the loudest right now for NASA, it's because they want to be part of the program.
You're 100% right. Okay.
Yeah.
There is a scam being played right in front of everybody's eyes. And because nobody knows anything about UFOs, and the governmental and the scientific side have done a great job at eliminating and ostracizing the UFO community from all of this, we all lose because of it. We all lose. Okay. Because the media doesn't know what questions to ask. They're just reporting on it. Okay. Look what we got. Look what NASA's saying. Okay. Where's the question? What's in your closet? 40 years of SETI research. They find nothing. Yet Samantha Mowat could call aliens in at no problem. At any time. And no offense, I'll leak a little bit. You're witness to this. People can do this. And NASA can't find a thing? Come on. It's a sham, it's a scam, and it's all about disclosure for dollars. That's what they want. And the public is absolutely screwed because of it. By the way, it is that time of the night where we should really, Tim, say hello, how are you, to all the agents and agencies who are out there right now tuning us on in. And we want to say hi to everybody. And don't forget, everyone, to give us a call sometime. You already got our number because that's the way you work. And remember, some of us can be bought. Just saying. Anyways. Yeah, Tim, I'm fired up about this. And I'm disappointed. I'll tell you where I'm happy. People on the UFO X, formerly Twitter, are not buying this NASA crap this time. They are not buying it. they're seeing right through it. And a lot more people, and I think we have a lot to do with that. A lot more people are actually listening to what we're saying and what we're tweeting or posting, whatever we can call it now. Okay. And they are actually understanding that NASA is a mess when it comes to this. And they're a hot mess. And they look like a stupid mess. And the people aren't buying it. And I think it's lovely. I think Bill Nelson should be ashamed of himself. If I had any way of doing it, and if I was American, I would be sending letters to my congressperson or my senator asking them to support Bill Nelson to resign from that position. Push it. Push the public. We do have a say. We do have a right, Tim, to have our say. And when we're being lied to by a government agency in the public, we deserve to have our voices heard. Okay? It's not just about elections, it's about everything. Billions upon billions of dollars of taxpayer money in the United States goes to NASA every year. And they are lying to the American public and the world public about UFOs and what they know. That is the travesty. And when you get groups like the SCU or the Safe Aerospace for Pilots and every other group waving the NASA flag over their slimy report, shame on them. And they deserve to be shamed publicly. And I have no problem doing that. And I'm saying that once again, as I have many friends in the SCU, and I have no problem telling them that.
Yeah. And I think we knew we were up for some spin the minute that Bill Nelson finished his speech, and then the person that got up and started speaking right after him almost repeated his speech word for word. It was almost she had regurgitated the same exact speech, and there was no new information. And then we heard from the next independent science board member, and they said almost the same exact thing again. It was as if they were just each reading from the same script. And it was very frustrating. And then when James Fox presented a question, a few very logical questions, they were absolutely dodged. And they weren't even hardball questions.
Well, Tim, if you guys are listening in on our YouTube channel, stick around. We're going to continue this conversation. But right now, we got to say goodnight as Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal is rocking us in the background with Little Brother is watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in at work, at home, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you to everyone in our chat rooms tonight. YouTube, Twitch, LGAP, Facebook, Spreaker, LinkedIn, the Space Travelers Club, and on Twitter or X at hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for choosing to share your evening with us, because together, my friends, we're watching. We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Yes, the Woo train has docked for the night. But soon, my friends, we shall ride again. Your seats are always available. Your tickets never expire. And if you want to bring a friend, we've got room for them too. Good night. All right. There we go. Look who it is. Look who it is.
Dum
the
dum
man,
dum.
myth, and the legend all
Hey,
rolled into one. It's
What?
Random Guy.
secret agent man.
Stare at my
It's-
ceiling fan.
that rhymed. Nice.
What's up, homies?
Not much, buddy. Actually, a lot. A lot's been going on
I
since
know
we
a lot's
last
going
came out.
on. A lot is going on, that's for sure.
Man, where do we even start? We could start with Mexican aliens. That was fun.
Oh, you do that. I want to shout out Jim's in the chat, so I just want to say, what's up, Jim?
Oh yeah,
Mr. Goodall, the man himself.
indeed.
Yeah,
He's
So
plugged,
our best friend.
he's plugged me
little
into some
Jimmy
good places.
Goodall. You got that right. Look
So,
at this.
appreciate
Look at
it.
this. NSA guy saying, Random Guy live from Mexico.
Could be. It could be.
See, ¿qué haces?
Don't drink the water down there, buddy, please.
¿Qué
That's
haces,
great.
amigos? So, what do you want to talk to about Mexico?
Do you have any insider?
On hanging out or what?
Oh,
¿Tiene algunas preguntas?
how's Jaime?
Tim, you're running the show here. He's wearing Dave's wearing the Carmen Sandiego hat, so you're up.
I love it. I love it. Well, do you have any insight as to why they decided to show that at the same time when they had a credible pilot there delivering info? Why they decided to show that? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically, sorry, I had to adjust. I don't know what the motivation of the Mexican government is because they're so corrupt and you never know what they're up to anyway. So who knows what the hell their game was down there. But the interesting part was dragging graves into it, right? And making it an international press spectacle. And from what I figured out later on after the spectacle of it was over, besides, that it's completely BS, was the fact that wasn't even an official government hearing. You know what I mean? It was literally all theater. It had people that had power, and even all the way down to the swearing in was not protocol for how you're supposed to do depositions in the Mexican government. So on all accounts, completely theatrical. So I don't know what the motivation of the Mexican government or the people involved at that level are, but it's pretty clear to me that the grift is now international. That we're seeing, and whether it's disclosure for dollars, which I'm almost sick of hearing because that's not even what it is. It's grifting for dollars. It's just, and people and politicians are figuring out, like I'm sure you guys saw Anna Luna. It wasn't a swimsuit picture. She posted that they're not getting a committee, right? And so they're already slowly and quietly turning down the volume of all the Grush stuff, which we could talk for probably a half an hour just about the transgressions the Grush story has made, right? So I don't know what the motivation is other than it's pretty clear. We got Spielberg dropping a Netflix special. I have a couple other friends dropping specials soon. And yeah, it's in the air. It's in the marketing. It's getting advertising dollars. And I feel like anybody that can sound serious, whether it's NASA or a Mexican government official, you're going to get airtime right now because it's selling ads.
And what do you think about Tim Burchett pushing for another UFO hearing and Speaker Kevin McCarthy promising him a second public investigatory hearing?
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, I mean, two things. We already knew that was going to happen, right? Because we joked about it tongue in cheek because we had the NASA disclosure. Then we had, well, I won't call it disclosure. We had the NASA hearing, right? That first song and dance. And then we had all the other hearings, and we had Grush testimonies, and we had all these things that led up. And we've all joked kind of all along. It's like, okay, not this one, but next month. Okay, but next month. Okay, but the next hearing, right? So we knew this was coming. It would not surprise me the same way that I called out Burchett and Luna for basically being opportunists of the movement for their own political gain because they're otherwise irrelevant in politics. They're trying to be important. They want a committee so they can spearhead something. And if they can tap into the UAP defense side of things, then now you have a line to the defense committees and stuff like that, which is line item budgets, and you become more important and your career becomes more polished. Serving in Congress and being part of a defense committee is a lot more relevant, whether it's for trying to be a career politician, win re-election, and or make money on contracts when you get out of politics or hooking your family up. The best way to do it in the United States is through defense contracting, which if UAPs are a threat, guess who gets paid?
And defense contractors definitely own our Congress right now.
Pretty much.
And so I was wondering, do you know or have you heard anything further about the potential church committee taking place with Congress? And if so, was there any visits to Wright-Patterson or anything along those lines that you've heard about?
I don't know. I don't know anything about that. Any more than you would. And I'm not just saying that, like, I really don't know anything.
Okay.
Give me 2 seconds, because on my editing, for some reason, they've started throwing commercials in. Spaced out radio. Check it first and have it looking.
Is pretty that's what the Australian with
Foot
by Corey, all that like space people. Those two, I think the fires that the area is one particular here
something
flesh the yells of the land and things that are born to do.
Unusual. It's understandable to have
Yeah, it's a debate that's going to continue until more.
This is Road to Electric, an original podcast journey to separate fact from fiction. This is Road to Electric.
Going to continue.
Safe travel. Safe travels.
Buying a home isn't easy.
Safe travels.
Oh,
Buying a
up. 1 second here. More.
Welcome to the new way to mortgage.
Oh my God. More.
Welcome to the new way to mortgage.
Information. More.
Welcome to the new way to Welcome to the new way to mortgage.
Information.
Remix.
Welcome to the new way to mortgage.
These drive me friggin' batty.
YouTube just changed how they're doing ads if you didn't figure it out yet.
In North America,
No, this
South
is off of
America has
Spreaker.
been seen. Australia.
Years ago. It'll look different to those who meet.
After this, stay tuned, everybody. All right, sorry guys, go ahead.
Cool. So let's shift gears to this recent NASA report, I guess we'll call it, but it's really not a report. Before I even ask any questions, do you have anything off the top of your head you just want to bring about that?
No, I mean, I don't feel like I heard Dave's rant, obviously, and I've heard others. After kind of stepping away from this stuff, I've actually been over the last month or two being put in contact with people that are all the people behind all these documentaries and whistleblowers and stuff like that. And the understanding is when I talk to people, since I'm not media, I don't have a show, they're cool because I get vetted to them. They're like, okay, this guy knows stuff. So if we tell him our story, maybe he'll corroborate something or whatever. So it's been kind of a unique experience in that regard. But yeah, as far as the NASA stuff goes, it's, what did I say from day one? I don't think it's so much that they're trying to be like intentionally blockading or whatever. I think that the faces that are being rolled out, they get talking points and that's it. And they're not allowed to speculate. All the anomaly stuff, all the cool sciencey stuff, the things where they're like, hey, there might be life on this planet, or this might be a UAP, or this potentially could be whatever, that's kept in the lab. And those get submitted to the reports, and those will never be talking points. And as soon as the smart people identify those things, they go to the smart scientists or, whoever it is, whatever their specialty is, and they're like, okay, explain this to us like we're in kindergarten. And once they do that in a report, they take it away from that person unless they need more further input on it. So that person can't continue to study it. So all they know is that they encountered an anomaly. So, and then the person that might get a radio frequency anomaly is not going to be the same person that gets imaging anomalies. They're not going to put those people together to corroborate. They're not going to put two scientists to work together to get an answer. that would be ridiculous. You get what I'm saying? So that is all collated at a national security level, that even I don't think it's the scientists outright lying or anything like that. They're just like, here's what you're allowed to talk about. Don't bring up that one thing that happened at one time. Just do what you do 90% of the time, which is boring space stuff, and tell people about it.
Okay, and so just to reiterate, what I'm hearing you say in a nutshell here, basically, is that there is classified information being handed out or shared amongst the people that are qualified and have the clearance to know it, that are working on this topic, potentially, and that information is compartmentalized.
Yes.
So that not one single person has all of it, or is it?
Yeah. And I'm not even saying I know what it is. I have no idea. I just know how this stuff works. And I've worked with NASA people, and it's very much the same as working in a SAP, right? Or like any SEI program. So it's like, you do what you do and mind your own business. And if you come across something, there's a way to up channel that. And then usually it's taken off your hands if it's something that doesn't mesh. That's how those things work. And so I don't know of anything specific or anybody specific. I'm just going off of what I know of how the government works and how these programs work and how people that I know in these programs work. So I don't have any information to give you specifically. All I'm telling you is that it's possible this information, I'm basically trying to exonerate the talking heads that you guys are frustrated with, because I don't think they personally are trying to obfuscate, or whatever, the information. I think they just don't know because of the way it's compartmentalized, if anything is anomalous.
And again, I'm going to ask it again. Do you know for a fact if they're getting classified information, or is that just speculation on your part?
I don't have, you'd call it speculation. I mean, I would assume so, because the radio signals intelligence that they have access to is about 1 million times stronger than what we were running with DOD, because they're in space.
Can you talk more about that? What kind of actual satellite data, or I'm sorry, I rephrased what you said there, but what kind of actual data do you think they're potentially working with that could be, at their
I wouldn't
fingertips?
comment on that.
Okay.
Give me 2 seconds, guys. This is the last one I got to do. YouTube got yet if you go
understand this design tends with the background is it for you
to the direct
person trips back back in what happened.
Stay in BC.
Stay there or not. There was more to the story, but there or not. Kind of sets around 5:30.
Your local dream home lottery is back with every Lake Life lottery.
Are you a BCAA? Are you a BCAA member?
5:30.
Do it. Do it now. It's a no-brainer. Lucky You is a legally valid description of BCAA members at Shell.
6 o'clock.
Do it. Do it now. Do it. Do it.
There. 1 sec.
Do it now.
Mass murder.
Who is your daddy and what does he do?
Where I stood, guy is wet wool.
Based out day 2. Go ahead. Howard. Sorry about that.
No, it's not like we're having a conversation or anything. It's cool.
I know.
Completely goes with the flow.
I know. Don't blame me.
I blame Mexican aliens that are evidently made out of cake.
I still can't believe that they showcased those bodies. Unbelievable.
That was ballsy.
I immediately, and I'm not a ufology guy. You guys know this. I immediately was like, wait, where have I seen this for? I went to Darcy's Twitter. I was like, okay, yep.
So sad. So what do you think of, I guess his name is McInerney? He's going to be the new liaison. Have you ever heard of this guy?
Nope.
Okay. New liaison to the Pentagon. Okay.
Nope.
So in your opinion, is NASA better handled, a better agency to handle this than Arrow? And do you think at some point Arrow's just going to stop and officially hand things off? Because we saw Kirkpatrick kind of do this, he represented at the beginning of this NASA investigation, I guess we'll call it. He came in and spoke, but he didn't speak at the close of We didn't hear from him yesterday. And why do you think that was? And what do you think the future of Arrow is?
Well, it's interesting because, well, how much do I want to say here? I will say behind the scenes, as far as Kirkpatrick and others go, there's other things going on that are business based, not ufology or UAP based. And I won't pretend because I don't know these people personally, but I know I've been offered personally things around some of these people. So I will just say that there's other things going on that are being looked out for besides just the truth. And that's the best I could tell you. And it's not even necessarily nefarious, like, hey, let's lie to everybody. It's like, hey, we need to look out for our bottom line type stuff. If that's the best way I can explain it. And also stop being mean to Brandon Fugel, everybody. See,
Who's
a lot of
being
people
mean to
crap.
Brandon?
I've seen both on X and in this chat account. Brandon Fugel is a good dude. I'm just going to tell you that right now. So stop being, it's not his fault if you disagree with something.
Yeah, there should be no bullying anywhere.
Brandon's always, he's always nice. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no bullying. For sure.
I know that was sideways, but I'd noticed that in the chat a few times in the last few weeks. I was like, you guys don't even know Brandon. You just see him. I've talked to Brandon.
We should get him on the show and chat with him. He's a good dude. He's a good dude. And they're doing crazy science there. I mean, they're thinking outside of the box at the ranch that he's got going. He's got more things coming.
I wasn't going to go so far as to defend all that stuff. I was just saying Brandon as a person is a good
I think it's interesting,
that's
man.
how far I was going to go with it.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is just, I mean, I don't know what it is, if it's real or not, but it's cool as a concept. The whole thing is cool. So it's been a while since we've spoken, right? And kind of a lot has happened. But and I'm not trying to bring up like older stories, but we're kind of seeing the fact that there's a little pushback on how at least the media is covering the fact that it seems like this topic is coming somehow back full circle, and they're talking about the fact that we had incursions into our airspace and the delayed reaction. And you're right. And why aren't we using our own tech to decipher what this is, if we've got it? Do you have any new insight onto where that story is going? And like, are we ever going to see any real transparency, do you think?
I only have hearsay and rumors because I'm out of the loop these days. I just have people, right? Just like you got people, right? It's just like, and I trust these people, but I hesitate to say what they've told me. But I feel like I will just say this, that definitely whatever the story is, that we are satisfied at this point with every encounter that happened previously in that time span. Meaning, we have an answer of what everything was. None of it was extraterrestrial. Some of it was potentially adversary stuff. And some of it involved some of our either misinformation campaigns and or our stuff. And that's the best I could leave that. But from the military and the government side of the house, they are completely satisfied in that they are past that.
Right. Right. And it's frustrating because it sounds like all of the data that they're receiving is coming through the military, right? And the military hasn't captured any UFO yet. It's all been UAP.
Imagine
so at what point are they going to turn their lenses on UFO and stop worrying about UAP? Because now we know it's mundane. Do you think they're ever going to actually, like, and I guess the fact that Jaime Maussan brought alien bodies to the Congress really changed the topic to alien bodies, right? Do you think we're ever going to get there? Because they're still talking about UAP.
Here's the thing. Here's the double-edged sword, and it directly applies to the Grush situation. I mean, this is no mistake. The naysayers, conspiracy people will be, well, there's either a psyop or misinformation campaign to undermine Grush and other whistleblowers, right? That would be, I think we could all accept that that's a possibility. But what if it's not like an active campaign of misinformation and just these people were either misinformed, mistaken, not told what technology, you know what I mean? It could be a combination of things. It could be a combination of people interpreting a story they heard or something they saw. And I'm not saying it's not the misinformation. I'm just saying we have to consider all facts if we want the truth, right? And since we don't know, and our Congress, you know, Lauren Boebert was not, I didn't see alien bodies in that theater. I saw something else. So I'm just saying, like, our Congress is not bringing aliens out. And until that happens, which is not going to happen, you're not going to get what you guys are looking for. The only way to get what you guys want, what this community wants, it's going to take somebody that actually knows, that's willing to risk it all. Not somebody that's like, well, I could tell you more, but, you know, I don't want to, or I don't know when I can tell you more. I don't. And here's the thing. I'm on the record. There's a lot of stuff I won't tell you guys, but if I knew about aliens, I would tell you. It's just like, to me, and that's just a personal conviction, I guess, maybe, or maybe that's why they never showed them to me. I don't know. But I'm just telling you guys, like, it's such a, every time we get to like, and again, I know people that worked with Grush overseas. They're like, this guy's legit. He's the real deal. He's going to bring disclosure. And then, but they don't know the alien stuff. They're just like, if he says it's probably true. That's what they told me. But then Grush himself is kind of unraveling, man. Like, and the stuff around him is unraveling. And I don't know, again, if that's a mechanism of intent from, you know, the powers that be, or if it's just probably don't have it, what he thinks we have. So I don't know. You tell me, brother.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, it's funny because I do the UFO report, but I still feel like I'm on the outside looking in. And to me, the way it looks is that they would really, you know, like this to go away if they could, because they don't want to have to tell us it's all ours, right? Because that would put out there to the world that we have some pretty incredible stuff. Even if one of those videos turned out to be something that we had, right? That's pretty incredible stuff.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, they want to keep it as UAP, and that's why they created UAP, because it's very convenient. And it actually doesn't step on the toes of this community in its own creative way. Like, it's managing somehow to coexist, as long as you are willing to separate the two in your head and not confuse them, because they really have, up until very recently, loved to ride on the coattails of the UAP and UFO and intermingling the two. But I feel at this point, they're really separating, and NASA is kind of drawing the line in the sand here.
Right.
With the recent statement saying that, you know, hey, there's something, we don't know what it is, but it's not extraterrestrial. That tells me that they're eking their way towards saying exactly what you just said, which is that we've been able to solve it all, and it's one of these things.
Well, I've told you guys before, like, I talk to people, and I'm continuing to talk to people. I've talked to nuclear physicists recently, and some of the state secrets that they probably shouldn't have told me. But like, so I'm learning stuff all the time, and these, you know, over beers and stuff from people. It's weird. And it's like, I don't know. I know that we have technology that just, it's Star Trek. Like, we have crazy stuff. And I'm not even talking about specifically what I know about. I'm talking about just hearing from other people that I know that are civilian, like really smart people that work. I was talking to a guy who he briefs the UN from like our nuclear stuff. That's the level this guy's at. And he's like, dude, do you realize we could just end the oil industry tomorrow? But we don't, because of the economic and political implications. And like on and on and on. And this is not a crazy person. This is a person that is like that high up and that smart and has the credentials. So I'm curious, because I keep talking to people like that. And I'm talking to people like, you know, I have a whole list. Making my way, like you saw, I'll say it because Jim put it in there. I'm talking to Bob soon. So like I got a huge list, And I'm basically corroborating because I kind of have a view that you don't have, per se, man off the street. I have behind the curtain views. And so if I can take what everybody tells me and piece together and figure out who's who's a grifter and who's legit, I'm not saying I'll get a definitive answer, but I'll get closer. And then I'll be able to be like, I'm not going to be able to tell you guys all these conversations, but what I can tell you is that guy's full of it or that guy's legit. And that is helpful in itself.
And so with all of your experiences that you've had since the day that you and I met to right now, has your opinion of this topic changed at all? And is
Absolutely.
there, okay, can you embellish it all on that?
Yeah, because it's just a personal thing, right?
Yeah.
And my personal journey, I went from there's nothing out there, it's all BS, to there's definitely something out there. But the freaky part for me is I don't think it actually, after all the conversations, all the research, all the books, all the talking with Nicole, like everybody that I've come into my life in the last year since I've been learning about this stuff, I think it's interdimensional. I think they're here. I don't think it's Mars or Martians or solar systems. I think it's some kind of something we may not understand in our lifetime or in the next 10 lifetimes. I don't know. But everything, if you look at whether it's religion, people that, do, what do they call that? Like when you're not just remote viewing, but what do they call that? Like when you put yourself in hypnosis, like a hypnotic state, and you
Out
can
of body experiences.
kind of, yeah, there's like 100 different versions of that, right? Between
Astral
religion,
traveling. Astral
whatever
travel.
you want to call it.
Yeah.
Insert people have near-death experiences, right?
Yeah.
People that, do drugs and hallucinate because they feel separate from their physical body, whatever it may be. The one thing that holds true is these feelings of energy, light, encounters that seem to be omnipresent with their body here on Earth, where we know that can't be true, which means there's another plane. And I sound like a crazy person saying this. I don't subscribe to anything. I'm not lighting incense in my rooms. I don't use drugs, but like I have an opening in my mind now where I'm looking to these things because it's too much. There's too many witnesses and there's too many correlations between these different events that makes sense when you look at it from that perspective. So yes, I'm changing that aspect. I don't think there's little green men flying 1 billion miles away. I think if, whether you want to call it a simulation, space-time, whatever, I think 1 billion miles away is the same thing as right here with us if you know how to traverse that space with the proper technology.
And proper technology. Have you heard any whispers about time travel being possible or creating an interdimensional portal? Have you heard that from any of the big brain boxes that you've been coming across?
Researchers have mentioned that stuff, but nobody officially from the government side.
And so, in your opinion, if that was happening by us at some point in our future, doesn't that change the fact that anything we could be experiencing could be a result of that?
Well, I mean, anything. I haven't solved it.
Aliens are us from the future, or it's another version of us.
You saw my joke tweet, right? But I wasn't really joking because
that's why I brought it up. Yeah.
Well, it could be very well that. It could be the only thing that survives from us in the future is artificial intelligence, or it could be artificial intelligence from another being, universe, dimension, whatever you want to be, and it created us as analogs to carry out whatever it is that the AI wants to carry out, whether it's repopulation of mankind, whether we're running an ant farm scenario here for something that they want to see if it's feasible biologically in their dimension. Like there's a billion different possibilities in that firm. But the one thing that holds true is you and I as physical beings can't time travel. Or at least it doesn't make sense in physics and to us, right? So if we go off of what if these things, these entities, whether it's AI, aliens, insert your concept here, what if they're really not that much smarter than us, but they just gained like 2 levels of technology that changed the whole universe, which is to travel vast distances which traveling vast distances without taking time is kind of the same thing as time travel. Because time doesn't exist. It's a human construct, right? We both follow that, I hope.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And
I feel high just talking to you. I don't know why, but
that's because I emanate that stuff, baby. It just pours off of me. Just hang out with me long enough, you're gonna feel wasted. But, well, I like that, and I like that idea. And so I mean, I like to, kind of bounce that stuff off you. Dave is just silently puffing away and listening, and I love it. I hope we're not talking his ear off. But before we totally digress, I did want to just throw this last idea in there because it came across. So moving forward with that whole idea, do you think that we at some point here are going to get the transparency that we've been getting promised? Because a lot of the talk that you're familiar with, and that some of the stuff I hear whispers of, all happens behind closed doors, and it definitely doesn't hit the main media. And is there some element to this that they just really don't want the public to know about? And it can't just be the technology. I mean, there must be something else.
No, I think it literally is the technology. Because if we have, here's the other thing. Let's say it's nothing nefarious on the grounds of, let's say no people were getting, there was no men in black, no one's being killed, nothing, like all that was made. Like, let's just go with, just for this example, let's say nothing nefarious was ever done by our government or anybody else. And it is what it is. And we all concocted it, and, mass hysteria, but they withheld 0 point energy for 50 years from the entire planet. How happy would you be as a planet goer that we've been spending money, resources, pollution, all this stuff, fighting wars over oil, and they're just sitting on it? Like, that's just one example, right? How would you like to know that they could travel to Mars and back in less than a day? And they've done multiple studies around our solar system already. Didn't report it to you, use your tax money to do it. You're going to be pissed, even if they didn't kill anybody, just because they didn't talk about the technology they've been sitting on.
Can we get to Mars in one day, do you think?
I don't know.
Maybe. So I also heard
I'm just giving examples here.
I also heard that the potential was that the human race, has always been a warfaring race, right? And perhaps, like you were saying, that we were all created at the same time, but this other race of entities, if you want to call them, whatever, beings on another planet, instead of warring, they were really into the technology, and as a planet shared it. And so we're the same age, but instead of dwelling and fighting amongst themselves, they worked together and created amazing technology. Like, I heard that, and I feel like that's totally possible. I think, recently, I know Dave Grush brought up that around Oppenheimer, around that time of secrecy and compartmentalization of everything, that's when we disrupted things, kind of as Americans, at least, and the world fell into line with their secrecy once we did. But it kind of all happened globally at the same time with secrecy over things and warfaring. And do you agree with that concept?
Well, the Nazis kind of gave us reasons not to trust everybody.
But at the same rate, I mean, there are reasons for that to take place. I'm not defending this, please. I'm just saying every war happens because of that innate human, way before the Nazis.
You can go to any island, anywhere in Africa, find a tribe that's untouched by technology or modern world. They will fight. They will have combat. They will. And I read in National Geographic when I was in high school. I did a book report on a tribe in Africa, and they all have the same skin color. And what they fight over? Their eye color. They would literally prejudice against each other's eye colors. So it just goes to show, like, we like to play against race and sexuality and all these things in our modern world because it gets clicks and ads and it riles people up. But humans our nature is very tribal. and we will always tend to group ourselves against other humans. Like we will find what we have in common and what is different. So that utopia is not in our biology. Maybe we're evolving to get there one day, you know, as our races blend, as we become more technologically advanced and there's less suffering in the world and less disparity of wealth and whatnot. I sound like a Democrat right now, but you get what I'm saying. Like if we get to that point where there is, you know, everybody throws around equality and all this crap, no such thing. Life isn't fair. But if somehow 10,000 years from now that was achievable, then humans could focus on working together forever. But right now we're tribal, one step away from cavemen. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, modern civilization, you know, 1,000 years old, if you're being generous, that's nothing in the scale of the cosmos. Like,
Dude, I've missed you. This has been so much fun. Thank you so much for hopping on. Dave, I've been hugging RG. Do you have questions? It's been a while. Lots happened in the news in the world.
Listen to you guys. I'm editing.
Oh, okay. You're just chilling.
I'm editing.
Dave's just chilling over here. So
I'm listening, man. I'm having a good time.
cool. Yeah. Yep. Well, I do have more questions, but I hate hogging the guy.
No,
I got about 10 more minutes. So shoot.
Okay. All right. We'll keep it sweet. Is your head completely shaved right now?
Yes.
Oh, dude. I love it.
I was actually an extra in a movie, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Attaboy. I love it. I can totally see that. That's awesome. And so I'm assuming you were playing me, and that's why you had to shave your head?
No, they were looking for ugly fat people. So I was like, oh, I can do that.
Ouch. Maybe you were playing me. Brutal.
I was playing Alex Jones. So no, I'm just kidding.
Oh, God. You probably were. That wasn't a
They
joke.
just had me screaming about vax and stuff. I don't know.
Oh, my God. You totally could pull that off, too. Oh, my God. I love it. You also look like the Dorito ad commercial guy. Or was it Bud Light? One of those.
Oh, yeah. Dylan Mulvaney. That's exactly what I look like.
I love it.
Look at Dave. He's like, Jesus.
He's losing it.
I love it. I miss you guys.
This is what we do. Wreak havoc.
Questions.
Are there any in
We
chat?
can save this.
There must be some in chat. Save us, chat. Chat. Question for RG.
Probably not.
Okay, well, I mean, okay, so I'll just go ahead and hog you. So we know also that Stanford professor Avi Loeb has been super vocal and getting headlines. Where are you with Avi Loeb and his work right now? Are you in support, or are you kind of like on the side of like this guy's in it for the funding?
So I haven't read or been through all of the stuff. I just got a general knowledge of who you're talking about. So I don't know any in-depth information, or I don't have enough to form a educated opinion.
Well, let's talk about something more topical.
My general feeling is he gets referred to a lot, right?
Yeah.
So, but I've also come across. I follow on Twitter, X, whatever. I like to follow both. I like to follow people that are proponents and the haters. I like to watch the clashes because the good thing about the clashes, it's terrible for ufology. It's awful because you guys can't get anywhere. You just try to cut each other down. What's great about it, though, is every time I start buying into somebody's story, somebody else is throwing where they're full of it. So I can kind of balance, all right, how much of this guy is legit? And so mostly I feel like my impression is it's legit. However, I have seen a few things here and there with Green Street and whatnot where things are brought up where I'm like, that doesn't really check out. So it's jury's still out.
Okay. Do you have any idea what some of the findings NASA did come up with? Like, they were saying that they did have some that they didn't either have time to, or they didn't cover because there were some reports, I guess, that remained anomalous. And are you aware of what those might have been?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I know that's not what you want to hear. I just don't know.
No, I wasn't sure because I know that they used aviation safety reporting system information and satellite data. And they had, I guess, over 100,000 reports that they were working through. And they got through a portion of it, but they weeded it through using AI, and some of it was going to be stuff that they would be able to manage. And I'm not sure, they got through all of the stuff that was publicly provided by the Navy that we all knew about publicly, and they were able to debunk all of that, according to them.
Imagine that. So the publicly available stuff, I would have told you, here's the way I would start every hearing going forward, no matter who it is. If we know about it, don't talk about it. Period. I don't want to hear anything about anything. I don't want to hear about any photographs or videos I've already seen. Tell me something I don't know. That's how you guys start to get somewhere, whether it's NASA, Aero, whoever. Don't let them control the narrative by telling you, generating a story based on what they know you want to know. Tell me something I don't know. That's where we start with this. They won't do it, but that's how you get there.
And I don't know how much of the conversation you were in on, but do you know why they didn't look at any of the historical records that were available or any of the photographs available in the massive archive at NASA?
I don't personally know, but I could speculate that there's a combination of reasons. One, there's no proper chain of custody. You can't verify sources because it's too antiquated. Number two is if we purposely had legacy programs that we are concealing but wanted to release all information post 1996, which is a common thread that I hear, then again, I wouldn't want to bring that stuff up. And then the third reason would be because they're waiting for all the boomers to die, which I joke about, but I'm not really joking about, because those are going to be the people that were lied to the longest and the most, and will be the most upset about it based on polling. Gen X doesn't give a crap because we never cared about anything our whole lives. Millennials and newer people, they're open to it. That's just the way it pulls out. So the government, if we just wait for all the boomers to die and then just don't look at anything happened before 1996, we'll tell you everything.
Why 1996?
There's multiple reasons for that, but I'm sure.
Okay. What's the real relationship between NASA and the Air Force?
They support each other. So Air Force, over at Edwards, there's a NASA program. There's a couple of different Air Force bases that have NASA programs. They usually coincide military aircraft to conduct high atmospheric or hypersonic missions. I know they have F-18s all the way down to prop planes that they use for different testing that are from the Air Force. They use Air Force test pilots out of Edwards and whatnot, like I said, and they can conduct their experiments in low gravity, low oxygen environments and have the support of the Air Force, whether it's crash crews, logistics, or refueling that's necessary, without them having to carry the entire price tag for that into the NASA budget.
And so does NASA work hand in glove with the Air Force then?
I would say as far as support, yes. Ground ops, radar, infrastructure, logistics, like I said, they run their own specific missions though. And unless they encounter an anomaly or foreign intelligence or something like that, they pretty much do their own thing. And then they'll report it to DOD if they encounter bad stuff that they're not supposed to.
And so they don't typically share personnel.
No, not
okay.
Maybe they do somewhere, but I've worked on multiple bases and locations where I've never seen it.
Okay, well, I guess where I was going with this would be what happens to, I'm sure, all of the reports from the pilots from the Air Force, because so far we've only heard from Navy air pilots.
I don't think you're going to get a lot of the Air Force.
I've never heard any.
Because again, I think Air Force is so controlled. The majority of our Air Force is centered over places where we dominate command and control, right? Whether it's CONUS here in the United States, whether it's Air Force Europe, even in combat zones in the Middle East, out of Qatar and everywhere else, we own the airspace and we own the ground a lot of times, even if we're not on it, because of the way we own the command and control. Over the ocean, we don't own that. It's too vast. We don't have, we have satellites that cover 99.9% of the ocean, all that stuff, but we have to be looking. And you just can't do that. So it makes more sense that you're going to have anomalous behavior. It makes more sense because you have international waters that you're going to have adversaries testing and probing. It makes more sense that you could test technology out of the seeing eyes. So yes, it makes sense that the Navy would have the majority of the encounters, because most of the Air Force ones could be, if it was our stuff, whether it's technology or adversarial, you would know exactly what it is, because there would be thousands of sensors. There would be human eyeballs. There would be too much that could go wrong. Or if it was even an alien and they don't want to be seen, they're going to be like, why would we fly here when everybody's going to see us?
Right, but typically, if there's a report or anything like that, or if okay, not report, but if they catch something on radar, isn't it over land? Let's say, isn't it the Air Force jets that are typically scuttled first, not Navy jets? And so, if there was a UFO, UAP incursion, wouldn't it be an Air Force?
Yeah, of course. If there's anything that's, like intruding the airspace, the Air Force, yeah, we have fighters that are on standby, especially in specific cities for such instances. But the way a lot of these things tend to work out, in my experience, is the radar contacts or whatever are not congruent with a threat. They're so anomalous, whether it's the velocity or the altitude, that they don't necessarily scramble an intercept right out the gate without upchanneling. Because if you see something and it's hypersonic and you don't have a secondary measure on it, then why are you going to scramble an F-16 that can only fly Mach 2 to go catch something that's flying 5,000 miles an hour and changing directions? It doesn't make sense.
Okay.
It's not a Cessna. It's not a MiG. It's not a Sukhoi, right? So
that's a great point. Great point. But do typically they scramble Air Force jets if there is something anomalous they want to get eyes on?
Of course. That's what you saw during the balloon ordeals.
Well, that was kind of where I was going. And so all of that stuff suddenly becomes secret. And if there's anything radioactive involved, well, then now it becomes above top secret, doesn't it?
Yeah, every fighter pilot is a top secret cleared person automatically. You have to have a TS to fly in a fighter jet. So automatically, the fact that you're in that aircraft and you're on a specific mission makes what you're doing classified until it's declassified or reclassified by the appropriate authority. That's just automatic.
Okay. And there's a much, I've heard, even more tight-knit group in the Air Force when it comes to pilots losing their wings over UFO reports than even in the Navy, where those guys really don't like talking about this stuff even amongst themselves because they don't want to lose their wings. And so is that why we're getting zero pilots from the Air Force coming forward at this point, simply because of that?
I would think that it's actually more to do with the fact that most Air Force pilots know that most of the stuff that you guys think are UAPs are our stuff. Because they fly in the Air Force and they work around these bases and they see more stuff than the Navy guys do. Like the Navy guys might come and land to Fallon or wherever, or NAS like Jacksonville or whatnot, and they got their own secret stuff, but it's not nearly as cool as the Air Force stuff. And again, we definitely fly our own stuff to see if it can be detected by our own guys sometimes. So they may fly a test article against an active duty pilot just to see if it's detected by them and how they describe it. And then when they pull them back in the briefing, be like, yeah, that never happened, with the wink of basically they know it's ours, or they might not give them the wink, but let them think whatever and be like, shut up, it never happened. But it could still 100% be terrestrial in our article.
And so could potentially the Air Force be testing something against the Navy and the Navy not know about it?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Now here's the thing. It's not that the Navy doesn't know about it, but that specific pilot may not know about it.
Right. Or anyone on board the ship that it flies over.
We run, you could go back, there's even Jim, I'm sure he passed out already, but you could ask Goodall about this. Like the amount of stuff we've done with F-117s and B-1s over the years, flying them over downtown LA, Las Vegas, over military base. Like we've flown them in Europe over our friends to see if they say anything. Like during all that testing, the only rule is just don't get anybody killed. You know, like you need to know if these things work.
So any idea what the other is here? So we've ruled out UAP. We know that they're working on that. But you and I know that there's this other element. And so how is that being handled? Like, where is that conversation? What's happening to the reports, if there are any, from military, anybody, other than firsthand stories? Where are the photographs? Like, you know, I'm like, is nobody talking at this point? What's it going to take to level up at this point?
I couldn't tell you, brother. I don't know. I've been out of this life for like 5 years, so
yeah.
As far as hands-on, so I just talk to my friends that are in it still, and obviously they can't even tell me everything, but I know how things go, and things move slowly. They have to. So I know not too much has changed. So procedures are usually similar, and when I see certain things or I see people reacting a certain way, I kind of know if they're concealing something or not, to a degree. Just
Okay.
experience, that's all.
Well, I'm going to wrap it up with this final question. In the whispers of what you've been up to, any whispers of anything real, any bodies, any craft, anything that made you go, maybe this is real, like a credible photo, a credible story?
Nope, nothing. In fact, unfortunately, in the last 2 months that I've been doing all this other crap, all I keep getting is more debunked stuff and more. You know, I'm not hardcore with it, but I pay attention. I get the stories. I'm on, X. I'm reading stuff. I try to jump in here and listen to when you guys have a good guest. It's just the more and more, I just smile because you guys know how negative and non-believing I was. And even though I've changed my outlook on, is there something, I have not changed my outlook on my position that we have aliens or bodies or any of that stuff. I have not changed my position on that. I don't think we do. I'm not saying 100% because you show it to me and I'll believe you. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just saying the probability where it would have to be and the amount of people that would, the logistics it would take off the table for supporting those kind of things, because of the way things work. It's just, I don't see how. I just don't see how. I think whatever is out there is on its own and we don't control it. I don't think we know about it enough. I think they know something's there. I think because they don't know, they don't want to say the wrong thing and they don't want to tell the information and have our adversaries figure it out before we do. So whatever they're sitting on, the reason they don't disclose it, the two main things come down to, some of it's probably our stuff and we don't want our bad guys to know, and some of it we don't know what the hell it is, but just in case, we're not going to share that information because we want to figure it out before the bad guys find out. Those are the two main things driving that. Sorry, I got like 3 texts right when I was talking. I'm on my phone, but that's it.
That's cool, man. Thanks for hopping on and staying up later. Yep. Dave, this has been a fun after show.
Been a great after show.
Hanging out with the old RG. There he is. This is great. It's
right,
great.
Have a good
night. Thanks for hopping on. We'll see you again soon.
Love you, chat.
Take care, guys.
Rock and roll. All right. And Dave, this is where I say adios, muchacho.
Me too, my man. Big
Enjoy
thank
your
you.
Weekend.
Big thank you to Shaq, Mike, Cat Chaser, Free Your Mind, Debster ×2, and Ross. And thank you guys for a great week. We'll do it all again. Don't forget the weekend crew this weekend on Spaced Out Radio. We'll see you again.
Stay healthy, my friend.
You too.
If you need bail money, give me a call.
Always, Dad. Take care.
You too.